We are recording it, right?
Yes, you have to record it.
We are live now, madam. You can go ahead.
Yeah. Very good afternoon to one and all of you for this LDP program. This is the first module we have started off for this season and would be coming up with more modules on different management related aspects of our ophthalmic practice, and would have speakers who would justify each topic with relevance and content. And I do hope that in this period of pandemic, when all of you have joined this LDP program with so much enthusiasm, that we stay relevant to your aspirations. We may not and need to different topics which are going to be discussed. It doesn't mean that you need to emulate any of them, because I'm sure all of you have had your own mantra of success to have become the young leaders of today. But I'm sure hearing some of these very positive leadership pearls will help you redefine yourself, maybe better, maybe faster. So I'm going to go on to introducing this very expert panel. We are very lucky, truly lucky on a Sunday afternoon to have with us. We have with us on our expert panel, Dr. Mahipal Sachdev, who is to be joining us soon, who is the chairman and MD of the Center for Sight Group of Hospitals, immediate past president, who brought in robust changes to the functioning of AIOS, raising its bar to a very high level. And it's an honor to have him amidst us, as we need to learn as formative leaders about what dreaming big actually means, and realizing it all multifold with a business acumen par excellence is definitely what all of us need. We have with us Dr. Ramurthy, our past president and chairman of the Eye Foundation Group of Hospitals, which now spans 13 sturdy robust centers across 3 states, is an individual who has combined his expertise in ophthalmology with a self-acquired business acumen and focused, driven objectives to set more fire to the discussions. We have with us Dr. Debashish Bhattacharya, who is the founder chairman of Disha Eye Hospitals, one of the most prominent and superbly successful practices, a highly distinguished practitioner and innovator in the field of ophthalmology, a past president and a man of great repute. Could you please mute yourself, all of you? Please, all of you need to mute yourself because we can hear all the household
Katta sir, you're not muted. Dr. Katta sir, you're not muted. Kindly mute yourself, sir.
Sai, can you mute everybody? We have with us Dr. Arvind Srinivasan, who's the Chief Medical Officer, Arvind Eye Hospital, Chennai, who's the Director of Projects of the entire Arvind Eye Care System, a qualified MDA from a highly reputed institution abroad, an astute surgeon, a visionary, a trainer, a mentor, who contributes majorly to extend Arvind Eye Care model of high volume, high quality, affordable cost eye care system, which traverses a huge section of our population. We have with us, joining as expert panel, Dr. Gaurav Luthra, who's the chairman and managing director of Drishti Eye Hospital, Dehradun, who's also the chairman ARC of IRSI, a very prolific surgeon and a charisma of his own, which leads him to guide many of us. And I'm sure I look forward to very relevant discussions with him as a part of it. We are lucky to have with us Dr. Kumar Doctor, who is the chairman and MD of his Dr. Kumar Eye Hospital from Mumbai, a brilliant, innovative surgeon who built a niche practice for himself in a very competitive practice pattern, stayed strong, and grew to his desired dimensions. I'm sure he would have pearls to share and get the best out of our dynamic speakers in this program. As my co-moderators, we have with us the leading young light, Dr. Srinivas Joshi, leading his Joshi Eye Hospital at Hubli, and who's also a member ARC South, one of the most brilliant surgeons and the future of our country. My other co-moderator is Dr. Anaga Harur, who's the medical director of Anil Eye Hospital, a very successful practitioner and member ARC West, who I believe will definitely add fuel to this webinar. So our first speaker is yet to join. So we shall go on to our second speaker, our esteemed Dr. Debashish Bhattacharya, who is going to be talking on a very important topic, infrastructure development and locating your practice. On to you, Dr. Debashish. You have 15 minutes.
Right.
I would want you to keep a watch on time and 1 minute before just inform us. You heard us, Sai?
Are my slides visible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chitra, and welcome to all the leaders of the future through this LDP program. It's been a pleasure being amongst all of you. And I have been asked to talk to you about the locating one's practice and how to go about getting the infrastructure right. So essentially, let us understand that probably somebody wisely said that the history of a place is often determined by the geography. If we take the three premier institutes, Shankar Netralaya, Aravind Eye Care System, and LVPI. I mean, one in Chennai, one started in Madurai, and the other in Hyderabad. And if you see them grow and bloom over these years, it becomes evident that the place was right for the kind of things that wanted to be done. Essentially, if you say LV Prasad, elitist, corporate kind of an approach to public service and serving everybody and going to teach people in that professional way, the so-called American way, it had to be in the so-called city of Hyderabad. Now, if you see the heart-touching service of serving the people and getting into them and realizing a spiritual content in the organization, it had to be in the depth of Madurai that Dr. G could flourish his dream. Similarly, if you see the Temple of the Eye and the constitution of Shankar Netralaya, it has to be Chennai because it had the right inputs, the right people who could back him there. So essentially, if we really identify, it is perhaps the location, which perhaps becomes the most important vital part of any practice, because it decides primarily the clientele, the ecosystem in which we evolve our practice and our hard work. So essentially, my first word to the leaders would be that don't just be too euphoric and go around in a big way with big risks, because as such, our profession is full of a lot of action. And so I would rather prefer that we go brick by brick rather than go full throttle in the first go. So as I told you, that the first point which matters most is that it determines our patient base and the profile, because usually we expect patients from the proximity. If I am to develop an elitist practice, I have to be in South Delhi. But if I have to be in an affordable practice, I better locate my practice in a developing area of Noida or in East Delhi. So, I mean, I'm just giving a broad example, nothing about South or East. That is what little I understand. I picked up Delhi as a place. The second, perhaps most important thing is that whatever, where we try to locate our practice, it must be visible, because we can't do a lot of advertisement, neither is it feasible, nor is it substantiated well in a small practice. And it should be visible to the locality as they go by in their daily work, so that it's a constant reminder. If I have a problem, I'll go there. So visibility is a very important thing. And the third thing is that it should be expandable. I mean, if possible, because if it is a green field, then one must choose a bigger plot of land so that subsequently it can grow bigger. Because we have to understand that once we have started a place of our practice, then that becomes our monument of service. So we have to be there, because if we have, when we put in 5 years, 10 years in that, so that becomes a specific point or the monument of our work. So if we are on a brownfield project where we are hiring or renting a premises, we must see that there is sufficient space in the same floor above or below. So it must be an expandable area. And, I is for accessibility reason also. And, to get in more footfalls, you need to be very communicably accessible, closer to the railway station, the bus stand, the nearest transport mode, where people can just walk into that facility. That kind of a requirement also becomes very important. Obviously, we must see that it has to have growth. That place must have growth, because if it is a fully developed place, then everything is probably quite well settled, and a newcomer probably would have bigger challenges to develop it. And growth is perhaps best indicated if there is a very good mix of young people as well as old people. Only young people, as in Bangalore, most of Bangalore may not be the best ophthalmic destinations, whereas only very old people, maybe in some smaller parts of Calcutta, may again be not the only place, because those after them, there would probably be nothing left. So this place, again, we must see that how much of the drainage area, what is there to come in future, and how much drainage does that place bring in? How well is it connected to other places? Especially the district towns, we have to see that how nicely is it connected. Sometimes the district town and the economic town is probably different, and thereby the connectivities also differ. So we have to take these things into account also. That do we get the drainage of the biggest section of the population close to the proximity of our location? Fringe zones, by fringe zones, I mean Noida or maybe Barrackpur, where we are located. We are just outside the city, or where Aravind Chennai is located. It's just on the NCR, and it is within the city limits, but it has the entire Pondicherry and the Vellore area connected to them, which actually enters the city through that area. So these are important considerations. This could be an interesting and point where you could look at retiring practices. The place is very good, but somehow it's skipped the attention of younger people there. And there are 3 practices which are 60-year-olds, and they might be just, all too full and trying to pack up in the next 5-10 years. So that could be a very good place. Established hospital. I mean, some people get scared. I think, somebody opens a hospital in front of our main hospital, I think overflow, or, you open a place just outside Aravind Madurai, the overflow itself probably would be enough for one practitioner's happy day. So that could be one of the ways of doing things. And obviously, for design reasons, somehow I have I favor a rectangular piece of land or a rectangular floor plate, rather than a square floor plate, because the in-between things, you cannot bring down your services in a more efficient way, because we have zones, the OPD, then the service areas, and then the washrooms, then the ward begins, and then the OT at the last. And this kind of zoning, if you have a longer area, which is about 33 square feet wide, I think you could have a 10 by 10 room, which could be a consultant room, a refraction room, and subsequently you go through the channel and you have a 23 feet where you can have a corridor and a waiting place, or it could be an OT with a corridor, the block room, and the ward in front of that. So, that 33 feet dimension is a wonderful thing. But if that enlarges to 50 feet, I think it makes things quite complicated, I mean, in design terms. Obviously, we should not forget that any location must have a sensible parking area. As per the urban requirements, we probably say that a car parking is required for 100 square meters. And of course, 2 stairs are very mandatory because it is a statutory requirement for fire clearances. So if you are renting a premises, we should always look that there should be a 6 feet stair, and one stair should totally be enclosed, and it should be kept only for emergency exits. So is there a staircase like that? So all in all, slowly evolving our patient base, and from there on climbing and trying to place that and understand that the location becomes our basic infrastructure becomes ultimately the temple of our service. So we can't change every day. So we need to spend a lot of time to find that place, research it out very well, and then go ahead. Now, regarding building an infrastructure, I think one should not just hurry up because, okay, I'm getting a few patients, so let's start a hospital because that was my dream. Yes, maybe because the incubation and the gestational period may become difficult. So unless you're seeing 30 patients per day and growing 20% year on year, if you're not doing, say, around 8,000-9,000 patients a year, I don't think you have the sufficient resources to have a small eye hospital even today. So because the standards have been such, that has been the common practice. So essentially, it could be working in a hospital, doing evening clinics, and then you have a clinic, you can forego the hospital and start operating in a rented surgery center. When I say that, why it doesn't work? Because in a surgery center, you would get a very good surgery center for 6,000, 8,000. I'm talking by Calcutta standards with all modern equipment. But if you have your own infrastructure where probably you're doing 10 cases a month or 20 cases a month, your infrastructure is not going to be, it's going to cost you much more than 8,000 rupees. And that's where it would become a financial pain point for you in the gestational period. So in a defined, all this activity should happen in a defined geographical territory which interacts so that your patients can talk and the word of mouth gets bigger. So that helps to grow the practice, and you can aim at your final step of having our own hospital. Now, I, in today's perspective, cannot see an infrastructure, infrastructure below 3,000 square feet. Well, Anga might differ, because in Mumbai, I've seen wonderful places in 1,000 square feet also. But that is a different situation where it is so expensive. And if you go by that, even if you put it at 10,000 rupees a square feet, so it costs you almost 3 crores for the floor plate and then equipment. So 4 to 5 crores is the initial outlay. And if you have to see that you make it up in 10, 15 years, I think at some point of time, you must be doing, at least after 2-3 years, 2.5 crores to 3 crores of revenue. Otherwise, I think the previous clinic and surgery center model will be better. Now, if we divide this 3,000 square feet as to which areas would demand what, our experience says that the maximum, because the maximum people come in the OPD, out of every 10-15 patients do we get one surgical intervention. So naturally that they have to be comfortable. The drawing room must be spacious. So 50% I would allocate to OPD investigations, 30% to the OT and ward, and 20% to the—
1 minute more, sir.
It's okay, it's okay.
Now, in the OPD area, I mean, if we just wanted to conceive, we can have 2 OPD consultants. I would prefer, a small communication between the 2 rooms internally, so that if only one consultant is seeing, he can alternate between rooms, and that increases the efficiency, while the second doctor probably is operating at that time. So these are small nuances which we can work out. One optometrist room where 2 optometrists can actually practice. Then you have AP room, an investigation room with an OCT, biometry, keratometry, anterior segment photography, fundus photography, and a counseling, medical, reception, billing, optical counter, pharmacy. So all in all, that brings it to another 9 rooms. So
Please, I would want all of you to keep on mute except the speaker. Yes, yes, doctor.
Yeah, Chitra. So, I mean, this completes the 1,500 square feet in the OPD room. And of course, we have the 600 square feet of waiting area and corridors. We must remember that, as per FAR requirements, we need an 8-feet corridor. But, you have to show a 8-feet corridor, but you can wait there also. Or you can have, but generally don't put any permanent structure, because it has to be shown, and it is probably safe when it is required for in fire situations. So, 600 square feet of waiting area with corridor can seat 20 people, which should be okay for 30 OPD clinic and indoor happenings going on at the same time. If we come to the OT rooms, I think, the NABH says 20 by 20, but they would generally bargain and, be quite happy with something around 300, 350 square feet. All they insist on are AHU. And you have to have that. This should be mandatory, that you have a cleaning, packaging, which then it goes to the sterile area, and the BMW is separated and the affluents are treated, and then it comes to the sterile space once again, and the zoning should be followed. There should be a corridor in front of the OT and one OT, and I would request all young doctors who are coming in, that an AHU, don't be scared with this word AHU. We have more than 30 laminar flow theaters, and it isn't all that expensive. It probably costs as much as a good microscope, maybe even less. You can have a good laminar flow theater within 15 lakh of rupees. So keep it within the budget, because those things are required. And then you have a 300 square feet for for this cleaning, packaging, sterile area, and another 300 square feet of patient hold. So this brings to 900 square feet. And the remaining 600 square feet would be consumed in the store, pantry, very mandatory things. These places are very important for functioning of a place. Doctor's room where they can actually have a little off time, staff room, and washrooms, obviously. So the infrastructure is actually an area of functional efficiency, and designing it, we must follow the sequence of how that we propose to work, so the continuity is carried forward in that. Coming to tight budgeting or shoestring budgets, there is something called hiring, and there's renting a place, or something called revenue sharing. Now, revenue sharing is one where you have an angel investor. Somebody is a builder, or your father's friend is a builder. He said, okay, I have this place and it fits into your requirement. Just don't take a place because you want to put your hard work there, because it's available. So there he can say, okay, when you earn, you pay. But essentially what it works, that in smaller places in Calcutta, the going rate is around 7 to 8% of the top line. I mean, Disha can bargain a little further, but it can, in Mumbai, maybe it will go up to 10-15% of your top line. They will take, and they can even earn more than what is actually the rent if the practice does thing. And the other one is to buy a land and construct a building. To take a building by itself, you need to explore a lot of things, because a building probably has been designed for something else, and now you are working on a very different working philosophy. So the main thing to see is the column alignments, because sometimes you have a column in the buildings where you find that there's a column in the operation theater. Now, how to go about it? The whole design becomes so complicated. So if you have a column, say at the 10 feet, there is a column line, and then there is a 20 feet gap. That 20 feet can accommodate a lot of things. The waiting, and the 10 feet can have the room, and that 20 feet can accommodate the operation theater. So that 20 feet area, or at least a 17 feet or minimum 15 feet between the two columns is a very mandatory requirement. The beam height, again, you have the columns and then you have the beams connecting them. Now, from the bottom of the beam to the floor, you must have a 9 feet clear zone. Otherwise, the fire protections, the air conditioning ducts, all the wirings and everything, that the alarm systems, everything goes, the IT lines, the landlines, everything goes over the ceiling. So unless you have a decent structure, in the OT, you'll face a tremendous problem. You can't have an AHU unless you have a 9 feet, because the AHU itself takes about a 1.5 feet. And then you find that the bottle height is not being achieved, because you can't raise it to 100 centimeters. So these kind of things one must keep in mind while getting into the infrastructural planning. Now, a rectangular place, as I was saying, is more preferable. That something around 30 feet into 100 feet, just like a long thing, would be a wonderful place. I would really love to have a place like that, rather than a 50 by 60 feet. Now, 50 feet, you have rooms on one side. That is 10 feet. Now, what do you do with the 40 feet? You cannot have another room on that side, because then the waiting and the corridor, you don't have enough space. So now in the 60 feet, how can you adjust the OPD, then the ward area, and then the OT? So that becomes a problem. So these dimensions are, one has to be very perspective about these things. Now, if you have a square land, and that fits all other criteria. Now, suppose it's a 50 by 60 land. Then I would rather make it a 30 feet land and construct on one side and keep the other side for future use, and make a 3-story building. So first floor is for OPD and spectacles and reception, and second, on the ground floor, the first floor can have mixed functions, and the top floor is for the operation theater and a ward section. So you can have do it like this, or the best plan would be to have a light well in the middle of the whole thing. Now, this light well brings in light and everything, a very natural feeling inside the whole system. It gives you the the drainage and everything, and then you can have functions on both sides, and both can talk to each other. So you can divide it and go 1 floor, 2 floors. So that would be a wonderful way of planning, keeping a light well in between. I would not discuss aesthetics, because aesthetics, it depends. It has to be fast, very functional. In the function itself comes the aesthetics, and I would agree with Aravind that we must keep it minimal, and it must not look gorgeous. It should be easily maintainable, and it should be clean, and it must have some sense of aesthetic, some sense of warmth. So that's it. So another thing that I forgot to mention is that it is very convenient if every room had a window. You feel so much more relaxed. In few of our hospitals, we have the hold area where in the OT, where they have a external window, and the anesthetists are so happy. They say, we are so relaxed, we don't have much to do, but when we see out, we feel so, and they are always too happy working there. So this openness with the waiting area, if it has an open area, so that is the light well in between, can do these wonderful functions. Then, of course, as I told you, that when you're hiring a place or a brownfield project, see that the CC, the papers of the place is absolutely complete. The completion certificate is there. It is a commercially sanctioned place by the corporation, the municipality, or the panchayat. And there are the fire clearances requirements, the underground reservoir, the hydrants, the sprinklers, the extinguishers, the alarms, the 2 stairs, the BMW area to dispose, alternate power system, and air conditioning. For a smaller setup, VRF system is perfect. Nowadays, please don't put multiple splits, because the power consumption and the maintenance becomes a problem. So if you have 10 units or 5 units for 3,000 square feet, you would be requiring around 20 units, because the thumb rule is 100. For 100 cubic feet, you need 1. But it goes up to 150. So 20 units. Now, this 20 units can have 2 VRFs. So it can alternate also, and don't have a single unit only. If you have a DG, have a smaller DG, which can actually handle and keep everything on UPS. I mean, at least the vital things must be on UPS, your phaco machine, your microscope. This must have UPS at least, and an emergency lights in the OPD. This should have UPS, because once started, or an angiography machine, because once started, we cannot just revert back to it. So partitioning, I would say.
You would have to.
Yeah, I'm done, Chitra. Partitioning, I would prefer would be temporary, because we generally have to always, change functions. So the room needs to get bigger, or now we will do the pediatric department here, or this has to change. No, so if you use gypsum, then it's all gone and it's a little cumbersome. And if it's a brick wall with stone claddings, I mean, it's a terrible mess. And cement boards you can use, but my recommendation would be aluminum composite panels, which are fireproof now, and they come with antibacterial statements also. So it's good for hospitals, easily cleaned, removed, refixed. So this is what I say, and this is our new dream project, but unnecessary. We were unfortunately hit by COVID. So just to show you our new facility where we work. So there is openness, everything. We have planned as much as we could. And can we have this video, 1 minute video? So, I mean, just a glimpse of how a theater should be. And even if this is the lamellar hood and you must be operating under them, that's the pass box. These are the, the return air channels. So this is the interlocking door. And and obviously there are covings, and the floor is Jarflow or Target vinyl flooring. So then this goes to from the dirty corridor. But if you have 2 or 3 or 5 theaters, then you need a dirty corridor. One theater doesn't need a dirty corridor. So this goes to the BMW. Now it comes to the instrument section, where it is clean, packed and sterilized. So that's what it is. And thank you for all the attention. Thank you, Chitra, for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Debashish. You literally put your life and soul into communicating as much as you could to this young audience here. So I know you've done a lot of, given a lot of thought about the infrastructure for the early practitioners, but I'm going to take you to a little different level in the questions. What would be your thoughts for a person who's starting a fresh ophthalmic practice? Would you tell him to go and join a multi-specialty hospital where he would have all the facilities, or should he be in a standalone place and then maybe use that multi-specialty hospital for an extra edge in his practice? Well, I would mind all our other speakers also to chip in their thoughts.
Chitra, you wouldn't allow that, would you? So generally that option is not available, but what usually we see in the ophthalmic workplace, it happens between NGO hospitals, where the doctors, in the initial stages, they work with the NGO hospital, which are, because of their tight financial situation, they employ or can't pay much. So the younger doctors go there, they train themselves also well, and they serve also very well. And at the same time, they earn their living through the clinics and surgery center, eventually to come to a position where I said 30 patients a day. Before that, don't think of a setup.
If you have a successful practice at one point, when you're looking at a second center, how far would you want it to be located from your primary practice if it's going to be in the same town?
See, in the city, it could be 5-10 kilometers. I mean, cities don't travel beyond 5-10 kilometers. But in rural areas, I think we will go by districts. And in the semi-urban areas, it has to be 20 kilometers. Essentially, if you ask me how we plan it, we see from where we are getting 50 patients regularly, because our critical threshold is 150 for a small center. So if from a vicinity we are getting 50, we go there, we can open a hospital, and that automatically within a year and a half, it touches and breaks even at 150.
Any other thoughts, Dr. Ramurthy, Dr. Mahipal, Dr. Arvind? Have anything to add? Dr. Gaurav, Dr. Kumar?
The one point sir said was fantastic about air conditioning. So there was a mistake made by one of the hospitals where they did central air conditioning. Then what happened is half the portion of the hospital was empty and the AC had to be left on in that area. So what sir said was brilliant. Of course, his division of 50, 20 and the OT and the rest of it is in infrastructure was excellent, because invariably if we calculate our own infrastructure, it would be almost similar exactly to the same ratio. So my thought was that split AC should be put and not centralized AC. If you are doing centralized AC, then it has to be very well calculated as to which areas will remain on, because many areas remain off and non-functional through certain portions of the day. And unfortunately, you will land up keeping the AC on in that area. So that's...
What are your thoughts, Dr. Mahipal, if a person is having an individual practice, a younger guy, would you advise him to just have the cataract surgery facility with his place and go to a common pool where he can use the LASIK and the topography, OCT, angios and all that?
I think, thank you very much. Dr. Devashish, maybe you could stop this slideshow.
No, sorry.
No worries. So first thing, I just want to pitch in where Kumar said. Kumar's split, normally the people have the thing of a split hanging unit. So basically, the split ductable is something which is very much there with the VRV system.
Yeah,
So
that's what I talked about. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
Yeah, VRV system allows you to put off the thing there. Second point, which I'll just wish to add from where Dr. Devashish said regarding where to open a new center, there have been studies which have shown that for ophthalmology, a person does not wish to travel more than 20 kilometers. While for oncology, a person can go up to 500 kilometers. So there's a difference in the specialty where you are working. So what the rule he's following is the same rule that we followed, which is 10 kilometers in Delhi. So have a center which is 10 kilometers away. But now we are going on to smaller non-cataract. So that is a part of the answer to you, Dr. Chitra, is that we are now thinking, or we are doing vision centers in which we'll have just an OPD and a diagnostic. And these surgical centers can be used, can be different. So I think if a young person has to start at a particular point, it depends on how much money he has, how much bootstrapping he can get from angel investors, his parents, his relatives, or his own self. So that is where it can be. But my next talk on commerce, I'll just wish to say that you have to actually calculate the return on capital employed for each and every equipment, which we often do not do. At times, people have gone into the sense that they have put up an equipment, say a femtocataract was a classical example that people said, I'll put up femtocataract and that will help me grow the practice. But I think it's the reverse. Till you had a practice, you should not have put up femtocataract. So therefore, you have to calculate the return on capital invested that is there. And there are a lot of equipments where it is better to outsource, because now you have a lot of people who have mobile equipments who get to you, like a YAG capsulotomy, or even an OCT is now mobile, etc. So those are the things. But a cataract OT, basically, you'll still need a good microscope, etc. So if you are wanting to make compromises, I would rather say that you don't put up your OT, but if you can afford, then you can put up an OT. And the only thing, if you want to heighten it up, the only thing other you need is a vitrectomy machine and an endo laser that you can use from the OPD to make it into a surgical. LASIK is a different animal today because I think the number of LASIK units have gone up. There is a lot of stoppage of the drainage from the periphery. The prices had gone down, but now I don't have like any problem in majority of the patients upgrading to SMILE. So I think the smaller centers are having a tougher time as regards the LASIK. So that needs to be, I would rather say that they should go and do LASIK somewhere else. So all in all, you have to assess the situation that you are in, and there is going to be a lot of difference between an individual where there is a facility available or there isn't a facility available. So it all depends that if there is an area where there isn't a facility, then you can jolly well go there and put up. There are areas, at least in North India, where I know that a lot of people, at least from every family, goes to the military. They are Jawans. So they do want to get a LASIK done. Railway ki bharti, that used to happen. So people can come in crops. So it depends on the area where you have a distinct feeder channel, which will make you decide about the LASIK.
Dr. Ramurthy, have anything to add before we go?
Yeah, great points, Devashish. You said it all, but I suppose there are some youngsters also listening in. The only point I want to make is that there's generally a tendency, a comfort level as far as starting a practice is concerned, to start it in a major city, in big cities, and areas where you have it all: good schools, good college, good sources of entertainment, etc. Obviously, if you establish yourself very well over there, then it's great. But then that's always a challenge. There's already enough talent available, enough facilities available. And please remember, there's a fortune to be made in the bottom of the pyramid. I mean, look at Devashish. He started. Yeah, I'm coming to it. Devashish, he started in Barakpur. I mean, Arvind, for all their excellence, it was in Madurai they started. I myself was born and brought up in Delhi. I could not imagine myself in a small place like Tirupur, but with a lot of thinking, I went and started there. And I think the fact that I start, and when I put up a slit lamp there, it came up in the newspapers. Obviously, 30 years back, a slit lamp being installed itself was news. Obviously, that would not have happened in a big city. So that mindset that you may start in a small place, but once you have established yourself, once you are comfortable with the revenue, maybe you can reach out to bigger places. It's not just a question of going from a big place to a small place. Now, Arvind, after conquering down south, is established a beautiful center in Chennai. Obviously, I do not know if they started right in the beginning at Chennai, whether they would have been as successful as they are. So please do remember, when it comes to choosing the place, selecting a place where you are required rather than selecting a place where you want to be should not be the criteria. And maybe an initial 2-3 years of struggle, compromising in the quality of life is a good idea. Youngsters find it difficult to take, but I think in the long run it pays off. Regarding Chitra's specific question about whether you like to join a multi-specialties hospital, I think what she had in mind is something like, I had initial tie-up, I had a small 200 square feet clinic, and I used to go to KG Hospital, which is a corporate hospital, to do my procedures, surgeries. They bought the lasers, angiogram. Maipal, had an attachment with Apollo. So obviously, if you have and that also gave us a ready-made flow of patients. So not many cataracts. Our name became known. We were in a panel of a good hospital, and that also helps you, gives you a gentle push as far as your growth is concerned initially.
Thank you very much, Dr. Debashish. I would ensure that it goes onto the website and the YouTube and everywhere, and a lot more people hear the wonderful message you so poignantly spoke. It would definitely be of great value. Thank you very much.
Yes.
The discussions were great. So we shall now go on to our first speaker, Dr. Mahipal. We have already introduced you well, so I'm not going to do it again. So he is going to talk on a very quintessential topic: finance management, metrics to assess your practice. So stay glued on. I'm sure he'll have a lot of pearls to tell us.
Thank you very much, Chitra, Dr. Chitra, and apologies for being slightly late. I'll be keeping my talk pretty short. I think I have only a dozen slides, and I'll just go into the basics because I think at the end of the day, it may not be worthwhile for a doctor to be spending everything like from accounts to everything else that is there. Now, the first and the most important principle that you have, which Peter Drucker has said, is that you can't manage what you can't measure. So you just need to remember the word measure. If I have to be managing my practice for a youngster, if he or she has to manage their practice, it should be measurable. And I think a classic example of that would be the return that you are going to have on those particular things that you are going to invest on. So until, of course, that you are able to measure what you are wanting to do, you will not be able to come to any logical conclusion. I think that's a great quality in Debashish, my previous speaker, who does so logical laying out of the plan and everything. Now, when you have to start to look at managing and measurement, there are a couple of things that you have to do, and I have divided them into 3 parts. The first part in today's world, which is like totally you cannot survive without doing that, is digitization. That means that you organize your information, and if your information from the most trivial information is organized, then you will be successful. That will be the key to your success. The second thing is that when you have to manage your practice, there are certain things as an ophthalmologist where you would be constrained for time. After all of us have 24 hours. Even if we do things more efficiently, we will again have time as a limiting factor for the services. So depending upon how busy you are, you will have to manage and take away things which according to you are less or not critical and give it to somebody else. Now, the third thing that is important apart from digitization management is the financials. Financials, I would say, are equally important as taking care of your patient, and compliances, financial compliances. There are a dime a dozen financial compliances or other compliances, even for operationalization, trade license, fire safety, registration, etc., pharmacy license. Everything that is there is that then therefore you have to file GST returns, you have to do TDS, you have to do the IT, advanced tax, etc. So all these things are something which is very important. Now let me come back to the first thing that I talked about, digitization. What is important is that organization is a key to success, and all patient records, demographic, name, age, gender, address, phone number. If you have to do a CRM activity, you have to have the phone number, you have to have the email ID, you have to have the history, medical history, you have to have the fee charge, etc. All these things are of critical importance for you to leverage them. Until, of course, you have these informations, you will not be able to get out much data of what you have done so far. Now, the data that you have should not sit there. It needs to be analyzed. You need to understand how things are moving. Like Devashi said, 20% growth, etc. How do you go at 20% growth? So that is why what I would say is finances are the king. You need to have the greatest bank balance. It is of no use having outside book cash because you are not able to measure them. That is the first important thing. And then you don't have the financial strength. The corporate taxes are today reasonably friendly. It's about 25% plus surcharge. Having the cash in your balance sheet or in your profit loss statement is something which is very important. The kind of illnesses that are being treated, the profile of patients, the service that is being delivered, and the mode of payments, whether it's a credit payment, whether it's a cash payment, what organization, CGHS, CCH, etc., that need to be known because you need to be monitoring these things. There is a significant shift between when we started our practices to what we are today, from the cash paying patient to the managed care patient. So the managed care patients or the managed care practice is increasing over time, and there is no way it can be stopped. The appointments needs to be looked at in a much better way. The digitization for the appointments have to be there, whether you want to give an appointment every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, one follow-up, 2 follow-up after one new patient, or whatever you want to do, you have to look at that. And the reminder to the patients on follow-up is something which is very important, because patients are today reasonably fickle-minded. They don't even remember that they need a diabetic checkup once a year, etc., or they need a glaucoma pressure checkup. So you need to give the reminders, the SMS call. There you have the CRM modules where these messages, etc., can be shot to them. And this should be enabled so that you can address their concerns and make medical care easy for the patients. I think tomorrow, in due course of time, half the work of the patient would have been done before the patient actually enters the office of the ophthalmologist. Because of digitization, the history, etc., everything the patient might have fed, and he goes to a kiosk, just prints, like you can print on the airport your own boarding pass. The same way he can have his registration done, etc., on a kiosk and move on. So that is something which is very, very important, that is there. Now, all these things that I have said, once you have these, they will help you calculate the business KPIs. KPIs is the key performance indicators. What is the performance that is happening in the key areas that you wish to look at? And these could be like revenue per patient. It could be revenue per service. If I have a YAG laser, what is the revenue that I am getting for YAG capsulotomy, for YAG iridotomy, etc.? That is what I have to see. Number of services provided per patient. That means that when a patient comes to you, when a patient is a new patient or a follow-up patient, how many investigations, how many diagnostic procedures, and how many of them are converted into surgeries. These are the vital areas that you have to look at when you are managing your finances. You cannot afford to be an OPD center alone. A good surgical center should have at least 10% conversion. 9 to 14% is considered to be a good surgical conversion. That means from the OPD to the IPD, that is what you need to have. Then another thing that nowadays is having a lot of importance is cash/credit sales. You may be very happy that I have got sales of 1 crore, but if 66-70 lakhs of that is stuck money with CGHS, ECHS, or Delhi government, etc., that doesn't make sense, because you have already spent on the consumables, your money is stuck, you have already paid TDS on that. So it's a double whammy in those kind of things. So you have to actually chase and see what is the credit days that is there, that how much, after how much time you are getting the money from these different agencies. One thing that we have not been able to use is that we should all register ourselves as MSMEs or SMSE. And if there is a delay in the payment of more than, I think, 60 days, then they are the people who are not paying you are liable to pay interest. We have never used this, while this is a statutory obligation that money of MSMEs cannot be stopped by people who are payers for you. Now, all this data, unfortunately, there are no standard platforms or softwares. We are all working, developing platforms, etc. But I think sooner or later we'll have them. All data should be on a single platform. That means that you should not be using a tally or something like that. Everything should go into a common HMIS that is there, which should also have your financial data. It should have linkages with everything that you want. And there should be least time on collecting data and organizing it. Most of the time should be spent on analysis. And there are BIs, business interfaces, that are there, which can help you even do auto analysis at the end of the day, end of the month, and try not to have manual records that you were having. Now, the second part after digitization that I wanted to talk about was managing your practice. There are things that you should outsource once you calculate. If today, as an ophthalmologist, my 1 hour is equivalent to X amount of rupees. And if I have somebody doing a refraction for me, or somebody selling the pharmacy for me, or the opticals for me, and that is the amount that I am paying him for an outsource, and that is less than my X. That means supposing my one hour is equal to 1,000 rupees, and I am getting that same service as 500 rupees, I think you should outsource this. One should not have cluttering of too many things in your brain. I think we should not do too much of brain damage on things which you should shift and say these are essential and these are non-essential for you to do personally with your own hands or with your own mind. So the time spent that you have to consider between doing it yourself, I think most of us at times do believe that we could do a better job. But then if you are the smartest person in the room sitting, then you are not having the proper team with you. There have to be people who have to be smarter than you in your business, who have to be much more brainy than you if you want to be successful. And that is the key to get that teamwork and that power to get smarter people with you. And you need to outsource. Now, the important thing is in commerce is that expand if the business is first profitable. None of us have that kind of money to burn. Today's unicorns have funding from people who keep funding and keep on burning the money that is there. We do not have the capacity to burn. So therefore, we should expand if the business is profitable. Otherwise, first focus on profitability. That means that you need to make your business profitable and then only expand. You will fall head over heels if you just do a massive expansion because somebody else is doing, because Devashish is doing an expansion, or Ram is doing, or Arvind is doing, or anybody else is doing an expansion, that I should also go into the business of expansion. You will fall flat. If your present business is not profitable and you have not worked out on the commerce of the present business and your present profitability. Now, one thing which a lot of us abhor is taking a loan. Today, in today's scenario, with the liquidity that is there, is taking a loan may not be something which is bad, because the loan rates are as low as 7%, 6.75, 8%, 7.5%. That is something that you should be able to make more money than the amount of money that you are paying out as the interest on the loan. And otherwise, if you feel that you will not be able to make that much of money, then, as was said by Ram, you could rent out the OT, etc., go to an outsourced facility. But you have to see how many cases you are doing. If I am doing 8 cases a month, it may not be a great idea to make my OT, because the staff, the sterilization, etc., all those things, air conditioning cost will be there, which will be a fixed cost that is there. Now, the third thing that was there, which I talked about, was financial management. You need to take care of accounting and compliances, because this, I feel, is as important as medical services. Like medical services, negligence in medical services can get you into a soup. Being negligent and not paying your taxes, etc., not doing GST, not paying TDS, advanced tax, etc., can also get you into soups, and the amount of time that you spend solving them would be much more. Now, there are 3 things that I'll be talking about in my final presentation, and that will be P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow. In the accounts or the financial management, there are 3 things that even a starter has to look at: the profit and loss statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow. This is something very, very important, which is there. And ask more questions and seek examples to improve your understanding from your chartered accountant. Whoever it is, you should indulge with them. You should find out as to what exactly, and ask them questions, because most of us youngsters specifically do not even see as to what it is and what things are that is there. Now, in the financial management, what are the key components? The first and the foremost component, that is the revenue. That means that how much of work you are doing and how much that work is giving you a revenue. The second part is the cost of providing the medical services, that is the consumables. And cost, there will be a direct cost which will be there, which will be for AMC, CMC, medical equipment, and medical staff. Now, these costs are usually fixed. That means that if I have to give a CMC for a machine for 1 year, say for a excimer laser, if I have to say give 20 lakhs of rupees as a CMC. Now, whether I do 50 patients a day, a month, or I do 150 patients a month, except for the small little consumable cost, the fixed cost is going to be the same. So this is something very, very important, that you have to get a break-even point for every machine. You have to get a break-even point for your center, and you have to get a break-even point for every service.
More, sir.
Sorry?
Okay, it's all right,
More.
No, that's okay, Dr. Maypal. Continue.
So that is what you have to do. Then the operating cost is there, which is again something which is fixed. That is the rental. If you have taken it on rental, Devashish was emphasizing a lot on purchasing of a property. If you have to grow or you have to expand, it may not be a bad idea to take places on rent. So that is something which is very, very important, that you can take a place on rent and then go ahead and take a bigger place on rent, or you can go later on to buy, because capital, the return on capital goes down dramatically, because if you are buying properties, you are having fixed assets which are non-monetizable. Because I have made a goodwill, what Dr. Devashish was saying, in a property that I have purchased, how do I sell it? So it is better that you can have it on rent and you can move to another place. So that is another thought, Dr. Devashish, that you could have, rather than just buying properties which is there. The sales and general and administrative expenses, the cost of managing the practice would include advertising, center head, sales, HR, IT, etc. And then you need to look at the depreciation that you are having. Every machine has a life cycle. we normally take 8 to 10 years as the life cycle of a machine, that we will have to change this machine in 8 to 10 years. So you have to look at the capex that you have spent on this machine and that you should be able to take. And then finally, you have to look in the financial management at the tax and financing costs which are there. So just to give you 3 examples, and that will be the end of my talk. First is the P&L. Now the key observation that I am making 2 charts, year 1, year 2. If I have a revenue of 100 in year 1 and the revenue goes up to 120, which is a 20% growth, which Dr. Devashi also alluded to, then you will be having a revenue of 120. And this is where you are. Now, the consumables, if I am doing a work at 100, or if I am co-using the consumables in more than one patient, or I am getting a better deal. That means because my volumes have increased, my deals become sweeter. Therefore, from a 25% consumable cost, the consumable cost may go down to 23%. Okay, so the total amount from 120 that you are spending on consumables is now 27 rupees. Therefore, the contribution that you have is 75% versus 78%. Now let us come to the next in the P&L, that is the direct cost. If you are looking at the direct cost, which is say 22 rupees, which is 22%, this is not going to increase that much. It will increase like the increments that you are giving to somebody, or there is something else that you are doing, which is going to 24, but it reduces to only 20%. Okay, so from 22%, I have gone to 24%, but the percentage has gone down from 22% to 20%. The operating cost, similarly, petrol rise, diesel cost, etc., from 17% will go down to 16% with this increase in the revenue of 20%, but the operating cost from 17 will go to 19, but the percentage will go down. And similarly, the SGA would go down. The cost would go from 12 to 13, but the SGA would go to 13%. So where does that help? That helps that the EBITDA margins have increased from 24% to 31%. So do you understand from where I am coming, that the revenue growth has to more than compensate the increase in the consumable cost, the increase in the direct cost, the increase in the operating cost and the SGA. And if you are able to get that critical mass, or you are able to grow at that point, your EBITDA will keep on growing. The depreciation obviously with time will come down. So this is 5%, but the EBIT therefore will grow from 18% to 26%. EBIT is earning before interest and taxation. EBITDA is before depreciation. So the EBIT has grown from 18 to 26%. That is something which is important for you. The interest liability remaining the same. The tax obviously will increase when you will have, but at the end of the day, the PAT would increase from 11% to 16%. So this is a kind of a flow chart that you should be looking at as to the total revenue, the consumable cost, the direct cost, the operating cost, the SGA, the EBITDA, finally, the depreciation, the interest and the tax. And that is where you have to look at it, that the EBITDA has increased from 24 to 37, which is 54% increase. So whenever we were looking for private equity, etc., our centers were split up into mature centers that have been put up from 3 to 5 years, more than 5 years, and less than 3 years, because the growth potential of these centers would be different. So that is where you have to see how much of revenue percentage increase you will get, and whether you will be able to get more PAT out of these particular centers or not. Now let us come from profit and loss to the second thing, which is the balance sheet. In the balance sheet, supposing you have a capital that has been employed of 50, the reserves and surplus would grow from the previous figure that we are saying by 20%. So from reserve and surplus of 11 becomes reserve and surplus of 31. So therefore, the capital employed is 50 plus 31, which is 81. Creditors would reduce their time. So if you are getting better prices for consumables, the person, instead of giving you a 90-day payment schedule, may give you a 60-day payment schedule. So therefore, this is the creditor from 6 to 5 you are getting. And the other payables are this. So the current liabilities become down to 10 because the creditors have reduced, and the total liabilities become 91. So therefore, you have capital employed, which is 81. 10 is the current liabilities. This is the balance sheet I am talking about. So the total liabilities would be 91 that is there. And if you look at the fixed assets, the fixed asset because of depreciation from 20 has gone down to 15. So total fixed asset would be here. And inventory cost from 3 to 6 because you are now holding more inventory. For getting better prices, you have to have more inventory, and because there is a lot of money stuck in credit, your inventory cost will go up. And this is something that you have to keep into mind. Dr. Devashish, Dr. Ramamurthy will bear me out that as you grow, the receivables keep on increasing because you are going into managed care. So a receivable of 11 rupees, say, has suddenly become 35 rupees. So what has that done? Your current assets have come down, have become 41 because this is receivables plus inventory. So your inventory and receivables have gone up, but your bank balance, which I'll talk about in the final slide, which is the cash flow, that has been hit. So that is the problem, that the bank balance from 38 has gone down to 36 as you have grown. So if your growth is only because of the credit business, you can be squeezed despite the fact that you are having a growth. So you have to be mindful of this particular thing. Often we are happy in cutting the receipts, but not retrieving the money. So that has to be ensured that the money has to be retrieved from wherever it is. So that is what it is. Even though profit after tax for TDS tax purposes you have to give goes up from 11 to 20 by over 1 year, bank balance has decreased and cash stuck in vertical capital is there. So I hope in this two simple charts I have been able to tell you the type of business that is growing needs to be ensured as to where it is and how you have to capitalize it. And finally, what I will tell you is the key ratios which person has to keep in mind. The first key ratio which I told you, which was here, which is the contribution. Okay, so the contribution means that revenue less variable cost / revenue. That means जो आपका variable cost है, consumable cost है, that over revenue is called as the contribution. So higher your contribution, the better you are, and that is what you have to. The economies of scale, which I'm sure Dr. Arvind will talk about, that is going to increase your contribution. And every 1 rupee in the contribution that you have, for every 20% EBITDA, you have to get 5 times the revenue. But if you reduce your cost, the contribution, then those things improve. Now, EBITDA is a term that is used for valuing your company, and that is the earnings before interest, taxation, depreciation, and amortization. So that is something very, very important, that this is a key figure that you should have, and good companies should have EBITDA of 20% plus. Mature companies, mature I companies can have EBITDAs with single practices, can have EBITDA 40 to 50 to 60% because the consumable cost is normally between 20 to 25%. Now, PAT is the other thing, which is the profit after tax over the revenue. So this is another thing that you people should know. Your PAT should be great. And finally, what you have to look at is the ROCE. ROCE means return on capital employed. That means that if I have employed 100 rupees, if I was to put it in a bank or in a mutual fund, how much of return I would get? Would it be 10%, 20%? And what is the return that I am getting in the business today? That is something that you need to be mindful. And that is the EBIT, the earning before interest and taxation / capital employed. That means if I have employed 100 rupees of capital and my EBIT is only 10, then your ROCE is only 10%. Good companies should have, again, ROCE above 16%. That is something which is what is expected out of you. And finally, receivables over turnover. That means the revenue credit over average receivables. Your average receivables should be as low as possible. Higher the number of receivables / turnover, the better you are. So your receivables need to be pulled down very significantly. Often you get drowned by a lot of receivables in your balance sheet. And finally, the cost of goods that you have, the holding cost in the inventory, you should always look at your inventory. There may be 50 lenses of one company lying which you haven't used for ages, but that holding cost is still building on you. So inventory / turnover is something very, very important. So the average inventory should be less, so that the higher you have the inventory / turnover, the better it is. So obviously it's a complex thing that you have, but I've just tried to make certain basics clear to the people who are venturing into the practice, that these are certain things that you need to look at. The cash flow, you have to look at the profitability, return on capital. You have to have your data digitized, etc., etc., and that is where you have to look. and you have to be cautious before you go on and buy any equipment. Be very careful, thoughtful that what will this equipment add to me? Am I buying it because somebody else has bought it, or it is going to add to patient outcomes, patient convenience, or it will give you the revenue, etc. So that is all that I have to say. So finally, my last slide, like I said, managing, you need to know, you need to measure how to do things, and then only you will be able to manage. Similarly, I say, don't become an accountant, but be aware of your finances. It is very, very important that you should be doing some deep diving to find out your finances and what you want to do and how you're wanting to progress. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maipal. I'm sure the audience, you should go back to hear his talk maybe once or twice to get data clarity and get back to him. Now, the important thing which you have sort of conveyed is, I do believe that everybody here is having a good practice and going well, but what should be the time frame, or what should be the average level at which one seriously wonders on the viability of the venture?
Sorry, I didn't get. If you are wanting the payback, can you,
mute everybody, please mute your, excuse me, please, attendees, please mute. Vel Murugan, can you mute everybody excepting the speakers? Vel Murugan, can you mute everybody?
Ajit, I think you have to.
Speakers? Yes.
Okay. So basically, when you are looking at a payback, see, that is what the investors look at as to where you are looking at. Ideal payback should be below 5 years. That is what one is looking at. 5 to 7 years may not be a bad this thing, but in the hospital industry, see, that is why ophthalmology is still a darling of investors, because the payback time is much shorter than a multi-specialty hospital. A multi-specialty hospital normally stretches from 7 to 12 years. But an eye specialty, single practice ophthalmology should be below 5 years. That is what one feels. And there are certain machines which have actually changed suddenly. A fluorescein angiography today is really, and a laser is really gone down as the return on capital, because with the coming in of the OCT and the coming in of the injections, those two have taken over. So there will be changes which are going to happen. But I would prefer that each equipment should have a payback period that should be very clear. Like, for example, a femtocataract for me has given me my payback in 1 year or less than 1 year, or I am making more than the amount that I invested every year. But that is only in one center, not in the other centers. Wherever I had a poor payback, I had to move those machines out. So you have to look at payback of, I don't know what Dr. Arvind or Ram says, but I think 5 years payback or recovery of the capital invested should be something that should be in your mind. Max 7 years, otherwise 5 to 7 years.
Maipal.
For a young practitioner, before Kumar, this last question, then all of you could ask. For a young practitioner, if he decides to foray a lot into community practice also, so that becomes an indirect marketing for him and he gets known in a locality, but then he starts selling himself very low. Long term, in the present day setting, is it good for him in a private practice, or should he not do that, or should he have a separate center for that? For the younger people in this crowd, I wanted that question.
Yeah, I would suggest them to read the book Infinite Vision. And that is something which is a classical example of penetrating the community, getting your word of mouth, and letting the patient choose a better facility, or not a better facility, or a better procedure that is there. So see, word of mouth is something very, very important, that today a patient, it all depends. See, majority of us today are of the level that we will give good results in, say, 95% plus of the patients. Whether it is I am operating, or Kumar is operating, or some new person is operating, Prachi, you can see Praful or Tejas or anybody. So if they are properly trained, therefore the number of good eyes operated which are having your signature going on in the community is something which is very, very important. And let the patient upgrade. There will be, that is something that you have to do with your counselors and your counseling skills, that even if the patient is coming for a low package, that is an entry level package. That is why there is some lot of noise. People say that 100 rupees OPD, etc. That is an entry level package. That means that the person is entering your hospital. The barrier to entry is not very high. If the barrier to entry is very high, then you either I am working in one place where I have a niche crowd who I know I can charge anything, they will come to me. But then the fortune, as Ram said, fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, the maximum number of patients are at the lower end. And if you are putting a barrier to their entry, then things will be having. So going to a community and maybe lowering your entry level does not make any difference. It is how you upsell once the patient is coming into you by giving better services or better quality of this thing. And as the Arvind example clearly shows, that every year their number of patients from non-paying converting to as a percentage to paying are increasing. Dr. Arvind would bear me out, but that's what I have read in the books, that patients are willing to pay, somebody else is willing to pay for them, whether it's a managed care. So I do not think community service in any way is wrong. Today, disruption is going to be the word in every field. The way we practice medicine is going to be disrupted. A geo disrupted everything. Internet, they disrupted. People will disrupt your practices if you do not lower your entry level and reach out to the masses. And from there, you have to upsell. So there, a person can come, get attracted by a Geo phone for 8,000, 7,000, but might end up buying an iPhone for 1 lakh plus. So that is where you have to kind of get the patient footfall. That is the most important thing. Until, of course, you are in an underserved or an under-leveraged area, you put up your practice, as Ram said, and it will flow. But if you are in a competing environment, you have to do these disruptions to have the patient volumes and the numbers to survive. Survival is going to be very, very difficult over time until, of course, people start going to the periphery. In big cities, survival of ophthalmologists may be difficult because there are far too many people concentrated in a smaller locality and patients are not willing to travel that much.
Thank you for your infinite vision, Maipal.
Yes, that was a wonderful talk and wonderful thoughts. Kumar and Gaurav, questions to ask? Anagha, Srinivas?
Dr. Kumar, wanted to say something.
You said that interest loan was 7%, but the interest loan 7% is for land, because equipment division is almost 11 to 12%.
No, you, please go and rework your loans. The overdraft facility and everything is now down to 7-8%.
Dr. Kumar, you get good loans even at 7%.
Yeah, Kumar, that's true.
Please go and get your loans reworked. They have fallen down to 7-8%.
Ma'am, can I just
even equipment loan is down to 7-8%. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
May I just ask a question? Excellent talk, Maipal sir and Debashish sir, as usual, amazing. Just wanted to ask you all and other experts also, the percentage of growth in a practice which is say 3 to 5 year old would be much different than what it would be in a practice which is 15-20 year old. So as you grow in size, probably the percentage of growth also goes on reducing. So one question I want to ask is, how do you ensure, what is the ideal percentage of growth, number one, and how do you ensure that your growth rate remains the same year on year, even after you have reached a very good level, number one. Second question is, sir, you spoke about costs and consumables. So what would be the usual division of your budgeting in, say, for marketing and salaries? So that I wanted to ask all of you.
See, the growth cannot go down. I mean, you may stop to grow in one particular location. So essentially, no, there's no alternative to growth. You have to grow, whether you are in 20 years of practice, because either it is a collaboration, merger, whatever, starting a new center, you have to grow. And fair enough, I think I would say 5 to 7% growth is minimum at this point of time. If you are not growing, you need to go back and sit and find out, as Maipal said, look into all your data and find out why is it not happening.
So just to give you 5-7%, as Dr. Devashi said, is something that you may get in mature centers, but that I would call is a Nehruvian or a socialistic growth. that doesn't really serve any purpose. Today, when we are in the age of digitization, etc., these people like a Zomato and a Quicker and everything, these guys are growing at 20% month on month. So that is the kind of growth that one is looking. So you have to re-engineer yourself. What is very, very important is re-engineer yourself and find out, because every second, third, fourth year, there will be something new that will be coming in. And that is going to add to your both top line and bottom line. And you have to realize and catch that opportunity as to what is it that is new that is coming in. For example, we started an excimer laser, and I knew that the PRK was not running well. And then the Hansatome came in. Dr. Ramamurthy was a pioneer in putting up a LASIK, and that is something that made him succeed in Coimbatore, which his competitors did not have. So there is the Hansatome that came in. Then you had the femto LASIK or the femto laser that came in, and then you had the smile that came in. So the same procedure from a 19,000 rupees procedure that I was doing at PRK, I started, I don't know what others started, but I started at 19,000 rupees. Today I am charging 1,30,000 for the same two eyes that I used to charge in 1998, 99. So the point is, that is what you grow. Now femtosecond cataract came in. From a cost of, when I started my practice, 32,000, I am now charging 1,60,000 for a trifocal with a femto cataract. And 60% or 70% of my cases are now being done by a femto cataract. So my same procedure, even though my numbers have not grown, my revenue and my bottom line has grown. And then I have added services. We started as a single practice. I got on, say, Harsh Kumar for glaucoma, Lalit Verma, Dinesh for retina. So you keep on adding those things. I was late in looking at pharmacy. I was late at looking at opticals, but these other people had looked into it. So these are ancillary ads. Whatever you may do, you have to keep on re-engineering yourself to get the growth. And even though the property may be for keeps, but the property has to be redone. Like today, if I walk into my Dwarka center and I walk into Saptarjang Enclave today looks older. So the wow factor that was there is not there. So you, every 10 years or something, 8, 9, 10 years, you have to redo the interiors of the thing, so that it needs to be given a fresh look. Patient want comfort, patient wants looks, patients want new ambience. So Dr. Anaga, we have enough and more ways of finding out this thing. Renegotiation with your suppliers is something very, very important. There are X number of new suppliers who will come. Today, I might be, why is it that the sales of Alcon lenses is not increasing the same way as the other lenses are increasing? Because they are rigid on their price, and the other lenses are of equally good quality. They had a USP of a hydrophobic lens at one time, which is no longer a USP anymore. So people would go for a lens which is not costing them 6,500 rupees. They'll go for a lens which might be costing them 4,000 rupees and giving you the same results. So you have to keep on re-engineering yourself and never get married to a particular thing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, whatever makes you more business sense. I replaced my lenses with a catalyst because my PI cost was going down dramatically. And that is where the click happened, that an unsuccessful femtocataract with lenses became a successful femtocataract with catalyst. And there are X number of people who have done that. So please do not be satisfied. The first thing is be restless. Be very clear that I am not wanting 2, 3, 4, 5% growth, because that is less than what you are getting in the bank.
What is your ideal growth rate?
Just a point, Maipal.
Yeah.
When I said 5 to 7%, I meant in terms of services and not in terms of revenue.
Okay.
Thank you. But I think paucity of time, we have to go on to the next speaker. So I would want Dr. Ramamurthy to talk on equipping your practice. On to you, Dr. Ramamurthy.
Is my slide seeing?
No. Only the Zoom link is showing. You minimize it.
Yeah, I've done that.
Start share your screen again.
Seems to be becoming just one moment.
Usual thing.
No, suddenly it's become. Suddenly become old.
Getting old.
Connection.
Maybe you all can take a question. I'll just help.
No, I'll manage.
Madam, can I ask a question until
Is it
Ram
okay?
sir comes back?
Is it okay?
No, sir.
No.
Huh?
No, we are not able to see.
We are still seeing
Okay.
you.
Yeah, Srinivas.
Okay. Yeah, sir. One thing I wanted to know about the MSMEs which you were talking, and
Yeah.
we were not aware that whatever you have schemes like CGHS or ESI, and they are liable for the interest if they are crossing 60 days or so. And second thing, I think Arvind sir is also here. Majority of the management aspect, they all focus on increasing the footfalls in the patient. But when you spoke about, okay, I'm not increase the footfalls, but increasing in the revenue. I also want Dr. Arvind and Debashish sir to chip in this. So for the rest of the people who want to know here, should we focus on increasing the footfalls, which automatically increases the revenue, or focus more on revenue and not more on footfalls? How is the relationship?
No,
with each other?
Srinivas, yeah, Mahipal never said that. I mean, you should not focus on the footfalls, because when he was talking of going into the bottom of the pyramid, and currently the thought is that what is the cost of acquisition of a customer, and what does the customer pay you over his lifetime. So these are the two things which decides the business perspective in which Mahipal thinks. So, I mean, this is how maybe a Swiggy or a Zomato operates. And ours is a more, assured and fixed format. But I think Mahipal was talking in the same lines. Everybody would definitely look at footfalls. Yes, I mean, when you talk business, you definitely talk in terms of profitability and bottom lines. Yes.
So you have
Yes,
to
Mahipal sir.
both growth. See, Srinivas, when we do our budgeting or whatever, I need an equal percentage of number growth and an equal percentage in revenue growth. So it has to be compounded 10 plus 10. If I look at say a 20% growth, so 10% should come from volume growth and 10% should come from revenue growth over and above that. Do you get it?
Yeah.
So
and regarding MSME, sir.
Sorry, MSME.
MSME.
Meet the rules. We are all MSMEs. We have to register ourselves as MSME, which is a piece of cake. You just go online, register yourself as an MSME, and anybody cannot hold your money for more than 60 days. I think it is what it is. None of us are aware of it, because there are some people who send us notices that you have not sent us money, and we are MSMEs. So actually, we are also MSMEs, and we can send to the TPS and other people. That is very clear. But first, get yourself registered as an MSME. Talk to your chartered accountant and look at it.
Actually, it's a very easy process. We are already registered as MSME. But the problem is this TPAs and all, whatever you do, even if you go to the insurance regulatory authority, is not that they are always responsive. So as Mahipal very clearly emphasized, making sure that your dues are settled on time is extremely important to make yourself relevant. And as regards Anaka's direct question regarding what is a growth, I think it's extremely important that we track it. And especially in ophthalmic practice, it has to be month-on-month growth. And that's exactly what we're doing. Of course, COVID disrupted things. Nowadays, we are comparing more with 2019. And what we find is that we aim at a 20% revenue growth. It may not be a procedural growth. And the entire team is motivated, instigated to do that. And very often they end up achieving it. So I think that's a reasonable number.
Regarding the MSME, one more advantage is the bank say that there is no prepayment penalty for that.
Yeah.
If you're an MSME.
So actually your business gets valued on your growth. So people look at where you will be 5 years down the line. So if you are having a 5% growth / a 30% growth, your valuation would be totally different. If you're a stagnant practice, your growth, your valuation would not be great. A valuation growth needs a great valuation increase, needs your rounds or your multiples go up if you are having a higher growth. So the key is to get the higher percentage of growth.
On to you, Dr. Ramurthy. Can you start?
Okay. I think I'm going to come to a more mundane topic, perhaps, but very relevant to every youngster and even a seasoned practitioner. This is about equipping your practice. I did do a Google search. I thought there's not much information available. Is there some structured method of presentation? And what I came up with, these were the results of my search. And as you can see, except for some community ophthalmology purchase of equipment, there's hardly anything that is available. This is not something that is taught to us during our post-graduation or fellowship. Neither do we look at it when we are working for somebody. When you suddenly start your own practice, you are thrown into the fray, and apart from taking care of the patients, this is one of the greatest challenges that you face. So what I'm going to be covering in the next few minutes is about what I have done in my practice, how I have refined it, and what are the methods and I employ. Maybe some of this will resonate with what most of you do, and just in case there are differences, it would be nice to hear. As we all know, in these 2.4 millimeters, centimeters of eye which we take care of, there's a gamut of equipment, and the whole problem is that they seem to be getting replaced year on year, and for the same procedure, you have multiple choices. And it's important for us to know whether it's all relevant or whether it's even needed. So that's my first question. Whenever you're looking at any equipment, you can see a advanced laser vision correction equipment here. Do I really need it? There is sometimes a misconception that when you start a practice, you have everything over there, irrespective of the size of the practice or your ability to afford for it. There's no point tying yourself down with a huge loan in the beginning level when you are with a equipment with a white elephant like this. So obviously, the first question that you need to answer is that, does your level of practice justify that particular equipment at that point of time? And at least in the beginning stages, of course, bank loans are available at a reasonable interest, as was pointed out. But there's no point getting yourself tied down with these loans or with venture capitalists, etc., which might come at a much later point of your practice. So can I afford it? Whether the size of practice, my kind of revenue, more important than the revenue is my bottom line. What is the money that's percolating down into my hands? Whether that is something whether I can afford to buy this equipment on my own. And once I buy it, what kind of impact it is going to have on my revenue stream and as well as my profitability. And once you have decided to purchase, the most important thing you have to do is match quality with price. So there is a famous saying that you pay peanuts and you get monkeys. That does not mean that high price you pay, you get better quality. The converse is not necessarily always true, in the sense that just because you're paying a high price, it does not mean that you always end up with a great quality. So as far as you're able to balance out things and ensure that you're getting the right kind of quality for the price that you're paying, I think your half the job is well done. And when I decide to go ahead with a purchase of an equipment, these are simple things that I've been doing over the years, and nothing much has changed. If you're buying something like a non-contact tonometer, slit lamp, or even a laser machine or a fundus camera, obviously, if the companies realize that you're a serious contender, they would come and demonstrate the machine. More than hearing it from somebody else, you can try it out on your own. Your team can try it out. If they're comfortable with the workflow, with the time taken to use it, with the quality of output, that's the equipment that you need. And just in case it's a huge equipment like a LRCS platform or a Flaxme or a LASIK machine, in all these cases, I actually had to travel. In the LASIK machine, it was actually, I had to go to Singapore because there's no machines available at that point of time, and observe a competent surgeon, discuss with them, understand what are the kind of problems they face and what are the advantages they have out of using that equipment. And I always insist on the company to give me the user list, the installation base. I'm not interested in talking to the one or two people they point out to me, but I want the entire installation base. And I pick and choose a couple of them whom I believe have been quite successful, whom I can trust, and want their opinion as to how their experience with that particular equipment has been. And just in case you want to get a wholesome view of the efficiency of a particular equipment, the best thing is to discuss with the competition also. They might say it all negative, you don't have to consume it all, but definitely that gives you an overall picture as what the competition is capable of and what this particular machine that you're aiming at is capable of, and take an informed decision. And it's especially important that multiple iterations of equipments are coming up. You have to get fully loaded current version. But sometimes you might make an informed decision to go down a step or two, one or two. Sometimes the latest version has a lot of bells and whistles coming at a considerably high cost, which is not really justified for the kind of practice that you have, or doesn't really translate to any incremental improvement as far as the patient outcomes are concerned. So it might be a good idea to settle for something which is a level one or two lower, which gives you all the information that you need at the same time coming at a reasonable price. So essentially, being equipped with all the information that you need from the right sources is extremely important to make the right kind of information. I think one of the most important things I look for whenever I'm buying an equipment is what kind of service backup that I'm going to have. It's some of these companies have a regionally strong backup. Some may be strong in the West, some may be strong in the East. That doesn't apply to the major multinationals, but some of the Indian companies have a setup like that. So I interact with the service engineer, interact with the people who already have the equipment in my locality as to what kind of service backup they are having. Not only the service engineer, the application specialist is the person. The salesperson is different. He's going to be coming after you. He's going to be contacting you. But I am more interested in talking to the service engineer and the application specialist. I think most of the equipment that we use, whether it's a phaco machine, whether it's a LASIK platform, whether it's a topography equipment, we are just scratching the surface as far as the abilities of these equipments are concerned. To really understand the capabilities of these machines, not just at the point of purchase, but right through the time you're using it, it's important that you constantly interact with the application specialists. And the moment I gain a certain amount of confidence with the kind of information that this person provides, that's the time when I decide to go ahead with and purchase the equipment. Then comes the point of setting the price for that particular equipment. There would be a rack rate for the equipment, which essentially, and often the companies will make you feel that's something extremely low, specifically made for you because you're a repeat customer, you are a price customer, you're a key opinion leader, etc., etc. Mind you, they might be saying the same thing to quite a few others. So if in case that information available, you try to get as to what prices the equipment has been bought by in the recent past by one of your friends. That might be a starting point. At the same time, when you're trying to negotiate the price, do not push too hard. In their interest to make the sale, sometimes they might make certain compromises as far as the quality of equipment is concerned. So you have to make the right price for the right equipment. Once you feel that you have reached the median level and the equipment is reasonable, the price is reasonable, then it's better to settle for that. I rather want some kind of add-ons like increasing the number of CMC years. I almost, for all my equipments, I aim at a comprehensive maintenance contract. They might say that our machines never go wrong. You don't really need a AMC or CMC. I'm hardly willing to swallow that. Most importantly, what I aim for is a comprehensive maintenance contract of 5 years, and it's often within the hands of these companies to offer it to you, even though they may not be able to bring down the price of the equipment per se. Again, you have to look at the recurring expenditure, the consumables like gas. For example, we have about 7 LASIK equipments. Some of them on one gas fill, they work for the whole week so that the machine is available to us right through the week for its usage. There are others which on one gas fill works just for a day. This even on the second day, so we have to schedule all our cases on a particular day, which obviously is a disadvantage. Cost of the blades when we are using the microkeratome now, of course, its usage has come down quite considerably. But then fixing these prices upfront is a good idea, because once you have bought this equipment, you are tied down to them and you lose your bargaining power once the equipment is in your place. As far as cassettes is concerned, there are certain cassettes which are given when you buy a certain number of intraocular lenses. And as Maipal was saying, there's no point tying yourself down with a certain brand of intraocular lenses when especially multiple options are available. So you have to make sure that reusable cassettes, or in case disposable cassettes are needed, adequate amount of cassettes are available to you for the kind of volume of practice that you have. Cards, codes, licenses, nothing but a way of charging a per procedure fee. So you might get the machine at 75% of the cost, but in case you have not negotiated the per procedure fee, then obviously each time you do a procedure, that's going to be a pain point. So more than just bringing down the cost, these are the aspects that I very keenly look into. What are the conditions that are required for keeping the equipment working? Very recently, in my Cochin branch from a very famous company, both the laser as well as the OCT machine was not working well. They said that the humidity in that particular condition is too high. You need to keep your dehumidifier, your air conditioning on for that. It's okay for doing it for a LASIK machine, but keeping it on for a retinal laser and OCT is just not affordable. So obviously you need this kind of information. That's the reason that you need to regionally talk to people as to what exactly in your own place, in your own space, as to what exactly is their experience with that particular equipment. Obviously, if it's a LASIK machine, which requires the machine, the AC to be switched on just before its usage, that's something much better than something which requires 24 hours running of the AC and the humidity control, even when the machine is not working. Look at in spite of the CMC, AMC, you might have a comprehensive maintenance contract. There will always be some disposables which are not covered in this, and you have to look at what is the cost of this, which are these disposables. Phaco probes. Today, I believe Phaco probe of a particular company, which we very commonly use, costs almost 3 lakhs. So almost every Phaco machine that I buy, I insist on 3 Phaco probes being given. Very often these multinationals, because of other constraints, because they're answerable to others, they may not be able to sell the machine below a certain point. But then you want some accessories like vitrectomy cutters, Phaco probes, IA probes, an extension of warranty. This is something they're able to give. There are also vulnerability as far as A and B scan probes are concerned. We have quite a few of them. I find there are some probes which repeatedly go wrong in spite of the fact that the initial cost of the equipment was low. And each time I end up paying 65,000, 1 lakh of rupees just to replace the probe. There are other probes which are quite hardy. So obviously having a look at it is extremely important. Fiber optic cables for laser is another recurring expenditure which you need to look into. And obviously, LED bulbs in vitrectomy in microscope, I've actually fixed the price of this going forward for a period of 5 years. And I would like to use equipments where the kind of bulbs that are required, replaceable commodities that are required are quite reasonable. And I want this entire information in my hands before I finalize the equipment. I think this was talked about. It's not each center, it is not each the organization as a whole, but each and every equipment that you purchase has to be a profit center. Obviously, for a wholesome practice, something like a UVM or a B scan, you purchase for the capability that it gives you, and obviously you're not expecting to make a lot of money in this. But then when you are buying something like a LASIK machine, you see I put the cost as a 2.5 crores, and life expectancy is 5 years. No, it's about 7-8 years. It's a little longer. Interest on the loan, as was mentioned, is about 7 to 8%. And the CMC cost of the blades, etc., is about 30 lakhs. Obviously, in my case, it's usually taken care of for the first 5 years. And as you can see, you evaluate from your own practice as to what is the volumes, the number of eyes that you can end up doing. And obviously today you can end up doing much more than this. But if you at the end of 5 years, you're done only 1,800 eyes, the return on investment that your capital investment that you have made after all the taxes, etc., is just about 32%. And just in case you put it in a fixed deposit, maybe you would have made better money. Obviously, as treating physicians, we are not always, our decisions are not motivated only by the money we make. You want access to good equipment, you want access to good technology. But having said that, looking at the financial angle is also extremely important, as Mahipal emphasized. And whenever I'm doing a major purchase on an equipment, for that particular center, I go ahead and you do this kind of a calculation, and that does help me. Even though it may not be exactly accurate, at least it gives me an idea about the potential that equipment has in that particular center. The other important thing is the bundling for equipments. It's a good idea. I believe if you're buying a new Phaco machine and you know that you're going to consume 1,000 single piece intraocular lenses, if in case 50% is upfront, 25% you can pay over a period of time, and say some of it is based upon an intraocular lens consumption, it's a good idea to go for it. But make sure that there is no add-on cost to the basic cost of the intraocular lens. There's no point if the intraocular lens is costing you 5,000 and you're going to promise buying 10,000 lenses with an additional payout of 1,000 rupees each. And again, do not overcommit than what you use. When the sales rep will come and tell you, sir, you buy this equipment, now you're doing 250 cataracts. Once you start using this, your volumes in the next 1.5 years, you're going to be doing 600 cataracts. It may happen, I hope it happens, but it's never, you can never be sure about it. And in case you're not able to meet up those commitments, you might end up having to pay a much bigger price. There have been messy situations where I know of colleagues having to return back the equipment, etc. Obviously, you do not want to get into this. And again, if you're bundling your equipment, ensure that what you commit yourself is based upon the value of the equipment that you get. It's about 3 to 4 times the normal industry practice. Just in case you're getting an equipment 25 lakhs free of cost, the amount of commitment that you need to give is just about 75 lakhs to 1 crore. You cannot end up giving a commitment 5 crores. I'm sure most of the seasoned practitioners here are already aware of these features, but this is something that you will do well to remember. And again, instead of taking a bank loan, why not go into the deferred payment options? Obviously, you may have to give in these checks, but with the equipment as you earn, you end up paying, and that's, I feel, works very well. At least in the early part of my practice, this is something that I employed quite frequently. And whenever you purchase the equipment, irrespective of the quality of the equipment, irrespective of the multinational company or the domestic company that you're buying it from, look at these nitty-gritty, whether the manufacturing date, the date of delivery, when it entered India, when exactly it has been supplied to you, whether what is invoiced and what is there in that small piece, which you most often do not look at, actually matches. There have been multiple instances when even from good companies, there have been errors in this, rather knowingly done. Obviously, you do not want to get into this, and you have to ensure that the kind of that equipment that you are getting is what exactly you ordered. Refurbished equipments, again, is a good idea, and we are often doing that. It's not a question of buying it from one user to another. If the company is not involved, if they're not willing to give you the kind of warranty that you're looking for, then I would not touch it, because just in case that it stops functioning, you are in quite a mess. But there are equipments which are available at half the cost, at 60% of the cost, with a 5-year warranty, company-backed warranty. And I find that these companies, whether it's a LASIK machine or a phaco machine, they work quite well. And it's in the beginning stages of your practice, it might be a good idea to go in for this. Then again comes the question of, do I need to upgrade? You're having a phaco machine, you're doing 100 cataracts a month, you are extremely happy with your results, but the engineer walks in, the salesperson walks in and tells you that your machine is outdated, you are outdated, your competitors are doing this, you have to go ahead and buy this new machine. Obviously, if you're having multiple centers, you're reaching out to other centers, it is easier to upgrade, because you can go ahead and place your machine in a secondary center. But then if you are really going to exchange this machine, you can often bargain for an exchange. And sometimes the competition might give you a good price for exchanging this machine. That is, they want you to become their user. So they might pay a certain price to take back your old machine. They are going to ditch it, but the price that you pay for the new machine might be quite reasonable. These are aspects you will do well to look into. Another important factor from the tax angle is that whenever you buy a new machine, of course, for companies, it's a little different. You can only claim depreciation on it. But in case you are upgrading a particular machine and you are showing it as an upgrade, you can write off the entire expense. And that's obviously a significant tax advantage. And as I already mentioned, whenever the other factor that I look into is that when I'm upgrading the machine, I bring in 3 to 5 years of warranty into it. Maybe I had the initial machine for 5 years, which came with the warranty. Now the machine is due for, now it's out of warranty. I would end up paying 20 lakhs for this LASIK machine in every subsequent year. In case I'm able to upgrade this machine, get another 5 years of warranty, enjoy the depreciation on the cost of the upgrade, I don't mind paying 1.5 crores, because 1 crore directly is taken care of in the upgrade that's happening, because another 5 years of warranty is taken care of because of the change that's happening. The microkeratome that I bought way back in 1997 is still in use. As again was emphasized earlier by Maipal, whether it's a microkeratome, femtolasic or SMILE, you have to make sure all of these instruments have their place. And it's not that you just, you cannot go around claiming that I do only SMILE. You obviously have to cater to the bottom end of the pyramid also. Having multiple equipments in place is obviously an advantage. And depending on the size of the practice, the location of the practice, you might have to make multiple choices yourself. Another very important thing is buy only tried and proven technology. It was almost a dozen years back. I had a conductive keratoplasty machine placed in my center. I had my own doubts about this, but then they said that this is the machine of the future. You were talking about LASIK. What about the 45, 50-year-old who are not inclined to wear glasses? Hundreds of patients are going to come into your clinic. I had it for about 3 months, but then I found that this was not giving good results. Whatever little effect it had, it tended to regress. So I actually gave back the machine. But these people, the same people, went to my competitor and said, Dr. Ramamurthy is already having this. The patients lining up in his clinic for getting this treatment done. You'd be left out if you're not getting this machine. Actually, that gentleman ended up buying this particular machine. It's unfortunate. So basically, you have to make sure that you need not be the first one to adapt each and every technology, but at the same time, don't be the last one to do it. And I classify my equipments, India, just like Indian ophthalmology, ophthalmic industry has also made rapid strides. And I find that now you can see the vitrectomy, the last couple of vitrectomy machines that I bought, ones which have been made in India, and my multiple vitreoretinal surgeons are quite happy with the kind of output they are getting. Even the YAG laser, the last 4 or 5 machines that I bought has been from India. But maybe some of the advanced machines like the OCD, the fundus camera, the LASIK machine, you might have to still be dependent upon imported suppliers. But I'm sure the day will come when Make in India will prevail. I think it's extremely important to establish a good relationship with the dealer and the company. Please remember, the crooks among them, just like there are crooks in doctors, the good people among them, just like there are good people among doctors. It's not as if most of them are out to cheat you. As far as you understand that they're also in a business of making money, they have a family to support, they have a company to support. You are working together, then very often, once you have a good understanding, I always repeat my orders once I have achieved a certain amount of comfort level with one particular company. And if I'm satisfied with the earlier performance, it's always no negotiation. I just look at the last price that I paid, try to get that same price match, and then go ahead and buy the equipment. So I believe that as ophthalmologists, we are at the cutting edge of technology. Technique is more important than technology, but equipping yourself with the right kind of machines is extremely important. And each time you buy a particular machine, is extremely important that you differentiate between marketing hype and a true advancement, and ensure that you equip yourself enjoying the right kind of cost-benefit ratio. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramamurthy. I'm sure a lot of us gained a lot. I have just 2 questions to ask you. A person is not very sure about going into AMC and CMC. Would you suggest that he just goes for a breakdown insurance, as these machines do not go into repair often, or is that taking a big risk?
I think it's a big risk. Sometimes they say that you get these machines insured and just have an AMC. But I believe that, following up with the companies and getting the insurance payments is quite a job, and very often it doesn't come through. There is also depreciation depending upon the number of years that the machine has been used. Once it's been used for 4 or 5 years, the amount you get is extremely low. So I think it's too much pain, and I would rather go for maybe some machines which are very sturdy, and with experience you can go for an AMC. But all of the machines, I want to know the upfront cost, and I would rather go for a CMC.
If you are having a persistent problem with a particular machine, how do you go about solving it?
I mean, obviously, it's always a good idea to first solve it yourself. But as I said, that it's a good idea to have a good relationship with the companies from whom you buy your equipment. And most often, as far as your demands are reasonable and your expectations are reasonable, they also try to oblige you, because they have to be in the market and try to meet your needs. At the same time, you should also understand that if it's gone beyond a certain point, most state societies, even our AIOS, has a trade committee, and we have seen that multiple grievances have been settled quite well when they approach a national society, rather than approaching as an individual, either as a state, national, or a regional society. If you approach these companies, And if your demand is right, then the problems do get sorted out.
Dr. Gaurav, your thoughts on the Ramurthi's talk, or any question you can bring up which would be relevant to our audience?
I think, Dr. Amurthy gave such important pearls, which I have obviously picked up on the way, because, you kind of learn this the hard way when you buy equipment, how to negotiate the 5-year CMC and stuff. A couple of companies, Dr. Ramamurthy, just refuse to go with any kind of CMCs beyond 2 years, or maybe, an extended warranty of a year or two. How do you deal with them? And moreover, like, there are equipments which cross the 5-year threshold, and then, they all become liable. For example, maybe a pentacam or something, they last longer. Do you take CMCs for all those equipments as well? And do you negotiate your CMC prices at the time of purchase beyond the 5 years or something?
Absolutely relevant, Gaurav. I mean, I always try to buy an equipment which comes with a 5-year CMC. Of course, there are occasional instances when I have no alternative but to buy that particular equipment. It can fix my rate in the sense that, over the next 5 years, this is going to be my CMC. And when I'm getting this 5-year CMC, most often it's even from the 6th to 10th year. Most often they don't go beyond the 7th year. Even at least in the 6th and 7th year, I go ahead and say that this is going to be my CMC rate when I start paying for it. And then I keep that as the baseline. I have had microscopes which have been with me for 15 years, 18 years. I tell them that, last year you paid me, this was the CMC, 4%, a 3% increase in the rate for the CMC is quite all right. But beyond that, it's not acceptable. It most often works.
But do you have equipments which you don't kind of covered under CMC? I mean, I'm sure, because there would be like a few hundred equipments in the hospital. Is there a class of equipments where you don't bother to take a CMC or an AMC?
Yeah, something like chair units, slit lamps, low cost equipment. But anything like a fundus camera, OCT, lasers, though that is the reason, once you start negotiating with them, once the equipment is in your place, becomes a little difficult. I start telling them upfront that I learned the hard way, and I've been doing this the last 8 to 10 years. I almost refuse to buy an equipment unless I know upfront there is a 5-year CMC, or at least I know what I have to pay for the CMC in the first 5 to 7 years.
Dr. Mahipal, you would add something before we go on to our last very good talk by Dr. Arvind?
One of the new problems that is coming up is the obsolescence of the equipment, or out of service of the equipment that's happening. So that is something that even I have not been able to find a solution. You can push them, but say today, like I have X number of compacts across my centers, but they're saying that it's out of service now. The same thing happened with the ATL heads of MEL ATs. So that is a problem that really, because all these companies believe in 8 to 10 years, and then they say that we will not service them. So there are, and these companies often do not tell you even their fluorescein angiography and the previous double frequency of Zeiss is now out of service. So I think this is another point. I don't know, I may have missed, but Ram said or not, that at the time of negotiating of the equipment, you need to ask them that, is this model going to be out of service soon? So they have to give you kind of an undertaking on that it is not going to be out of service. That's a problem that we are getting in these companies. It's happened with the Infinity, as you are aware. It's happened with what is their Laureate. It's happening with the Compact. It's happened with MEL, etc. So there are these companies which are Bosch and Lomb. It has happened with the previous OpScan and those things. So you have to actually condemn those equipments, and really there's nothing much. It happened with their Protege stores, etc. So that is something I would rather go with a company which has a longevity, or well-established companies, rather at times go with fly-by-night companies or newer companies who may not be able to service the equipment, and you will rarely hear about, for example, a classic example in India is DORC. It has changed its distributors, I think 3-4 times, and I have been, it's a machine that I purchased, and I have really not been able to get a good service for it because it's kept on changing. So this is another couple of 2 things that I would wish to add, the pedigree of the company from where you are buying the machines, and whether they will be out of service when.
Ma'am, I
Thank you
wanted
very
to
much.
ask Dr. Ramamurthy something that how do you handle companies which have annual increases in their AMC and CMC prices? I mean, that's a new thing which has started last few years, that they every year they increase their AMC and CMC values. I mean, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to what Maipal said, yes, obsolescence is a very important problem that we are facing. But by law, all these equipments, whatever you buy new, they have to provide spare parts service for 7 years. So after 7 years, of course, it's a toss-up. And whenever you feel that it's going to go out of service, for example, I have used replaced most of my compact equipment with Intuitive, simply because I know that the service is not going to be there in certain period of time. These are decisions you have to take as you go along. And yes, just as our employees, just as we talk about our growth, these companies' expenses are also increasing. So a reasonable increase in their yearly service contracts is something that I think we need to accept. So as I already mentioned, usually what I look for and what I negotiate is about 4% increase over what I was paying earlier. And especially since we have multiple equipments also, it works. But I think 4 to 5% increase is something you can accept over what you paid the last year, in case you're doing it on a year-to-year basis.
So
I
Gaurav,
think we have to conclude this and move on to Dr. Arvind. He has been waiting for a very long time. On to you, Dr. Arvind. Sorry for the delay. You have to unmute yourself or what?
Yeah. Are my slides visible?
Yes, slides are visible. Yes.
Okay. So just give me a minute.
I think we kept the best for the last, Dr. Arvind.
No, I should start with, I don't know why it's not going to full screen, but let me figure this out. Should I start with full screen and go ahead stopping to share?
Yeah, you stop sharing.
It's not going to full screen. But anyway, let me not waste time. So
can you, Velmurugan, can you advise?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Sorry, go to slideshow, sir.
Yeah, that's not working for some reason. That's okay. I will do. I'm able to move the slide. So before I start my talk, I should really congratulate Dr. Chitra. The passion with which she's trying to address these issues to younger ophthalmologists, people who are aspiring leaders. I think all her questions, and even when she contacted me, I'm sure it was true for all the other speakers. She said, be grounded, talk to the people what they really have to know. And honestly, I've learned a lot from all the three speakers, and all of them are veterans in this field. And honestly, I just want to have one input. There is an art of building an organization. There is a science of building an organization. I think what was shared was the science. And I think Dr. Maipal made a very relevant point. No point in becoming an accountant. But please remember, science won't build organizations or institutes. Science alone. Then all the accountants should be building large organizations. All the engineers should be building large organizations. So it was a thoroughly learning experience. I'm really humbled to see veterans coming and sharing. No halls barred. None of the three speakers have held anything back. So I really feel fortunate to be part of this, and also for all the people who are listening to this and who will listen in the future. This is what they teach you in MBA. This is more than an MBA, honestly, because these are people who are practicing in the field. So I'm very honored to be part of this esteemed panel. With those words, I'm going to start. I think what so far we have heard is the tangible side of building an organization. Quality is an intangible aspect. Building, land, quality, finances are tangible aspects. So I'm going to talk about balancing quality with cost. We all know what poor quality entitles, right? It has affected all of us in different cases. Cost of resurgery, prolonged hospital stay, one dissatisfied patient, 100 people saying you gave me good vision, you're God, everything is fine. But one dissatisfied patient will give you sleepless nights like all of us have experienced as professionals. And again, on top of this, today in the digital world, they can drop in a few lines in a review, or they can share a video about what went wrong. So lawsuits, criminal cases, and media scandals. And today, everybody is hawkish, trying to unearth what is going wrong, rather than you would have done for 100, 20, 30 years of great practice, a great contribution, and then one incident.
Your slides are not moving.
Okay, I don't know.
Can you please close the presentation and again open it and slide share?
So I think if on the left.
Yes, Gaurav?
So you have to go into slideshow and then then open Zoom and then kind of share it.
My presentation is frozen. I'm not able to even get out of it.
So other option is that you share the screen. Just share the screen the way it was just now, maybe.
Okay. So I've shared.
And now, on the left, just click on the slide that you want to show. Like on the left side, just keep clicking on those slides as you want to show them.
That's not moving. That's the point.
How can that?
Some reason it's moving when I scroll it down, but it is not.
Go to slideshow, sir.
Yeah,
so,
it's not. Maybe it's frozen. My presentation.
So you'll have to go to Task Manager and close it, and then come back again.
Okay. I'll do that. I'll do that. Sorry to.
No, it's okay. We'll wait.
Keep you all waiting.
It actually changed just now, just before you closed it. The slide.
Really?
Yeah, it did, but that's okay. I think so. If you open it again, it'll work.
Oh, really? Okay.
And once you open the slideshow again, then you go to slideshow and then go to Zoom and share it.
Okay. No, unfortunately, I'm not able to open my. Okay, I'll just try that. It's not going away. The presentation is stuck.
So are you on Windows or Mac?
Windows.
So you'll have to do Control-Alt-Delete and then, kind of.
Going to the task manager. Going to the task manager. So
Yes.
Meantime, I wanted to ask Dr. Devashish that, there are youngsters who may not be able to open, kind of start their practice. I mean, they're always in a dilemma whether they should join a hospital like a CFS or Dr. Ramamurthy's or an Arvind or LVP or something, or maybe some multi-speciality existing practice, group practice kind of a thing, or they should start their own thing. So at what point, should a youngster be prepared to take the plunge of starting his or her own clinic or practice? Should they first, try to work for a couple of years and get an exposure to how they should? And there are some of them who are actually happy to just continue to grow in institutions where, they don't have the headaches of, managing or, being an entrepreneur themselves. They find it nice to kind of have the facility of working in a hospital which already has all equipments and they have the opportunity to grow. So these doubts I have heard from youngsters.
Yeah, I mean, the last option is obviously.
I think it is moving now.
Yeah. Sorry. Please carry on.
Devashish,
please carry on.
Yeah. No. So I was briefly, Gaurav. I think the last option that within a bigger hospital like Aravind, you have a smaller hospital which surrounds you. So I think for any doctor, it could be a privilege to enjoy that hospital. Having said that, I think probably you asked when should he start thinking of having his own setup? Well, I think a critical number I had given was since he is steadily seeing 30 patients a day, and maybe he's growing at a rate of about 10 to 20% year on year on his numbers. So this is the time when he should start looking for starting his setup. Thank you.
So
Yes.
can I proceed?
Yes, doctor.
Can you see my slides now?
Yes.
Okay, so we all understand cost of poor quality. I hope I'm sorry I didn't the slide didn't show. So I mentioned about all the points and media scandals. So I just want to put this up front that we always talk about quality and cost, but lack of quality can land us in a big soup and a mess. So one has to be sensitive about it. And what does quality mean in healthcare? Sometimes when we talk about quality, we always see the tangible things. We see an equipment, we see the femtos of the world or the smiles. So that's what we equate to quality unconsciously when we go. And so when you walk into a healthcare organization, there are three ways to look any organization. One is a physical infrastructure. Wow, this is a nice looking building. It's very modern. It has all the amenities. So that's one way. All of us gauge that. When you walk into a restaurant, you get the physical. Second is the intellectual infrastructure. Wow, they have good equipments. They have good doctors. So that's the second aspect of an organization. The third aspect, which is actually very critical, is the emotional infrastructure, which is the culture, values on which you are standing as an organization. So the physical and intellectual infrastructure keeps constantly evolving. A building, as was pointed out by Dr. Mahipal earlier, 10 years, 15 years, the building goes old. You change your car once in 5 or 6 years. You don't wait for it, obsolescence for a car. But whereas in ophthalmology, obviously, it's a little different. And coming to the aspects of quality in domains of healthcare quality, it's clinical leadership and governance. Governance becomes very important because that will ensure how the culture of the organization, how do you deal with the crisis. Management of the environment. Today, it's become very important. How do we manage the waste and biomedical issues and all that. Promotion of safety to patient. If something happens on the safety issue, today we are all accredited. We have multiple ways of people commenting on even a small fire, anything which can ruin. And today it has become evidence-based practice. Today people can go into Google, people can find out what needs to be done. We can't say something and get away, which we all know. Medical and technical competence. Obviously, are you well trained? Do you know what you're doing? Or are you venturing out on things that you're really not, one is not competent about? And then person-centered care. People look at it. People spoke about big institutions like Arvind. Arvind is like a supermarket. You just walk in, you get it. Maybe that is true for large institutions. But then a person-oriented, Dr. Devashish said you can put a hospital next to Arvind. Not everybody wants to go to a supermarket. They would like to see the doctor. They would like to know the doctor. The doctor who should spend a little more time. They should do a lot more of investigations. They have to handle the patient. So there are strengths and weaknesses in every system. So how do you leverage your strength and give that kind of quality? And positive interpersonal behavior is very, very important, as we all know. And aspects of quality, you all know this, but one is a measurable quality. If it's a cataract patient, measurable quality we would say is, oh, he has got 6/6 vision. Appreciative quality is, okay, your organization is NABH. This doctor has been well trained. He has received certificates. So those are appreciative quality. Perceptive is very different. A 6/6 patient might have tremendous complaints against the organization. He might say, oh, you tell everything is fine, but I'm not able to see well. In the night, it is a problem. This is happening. So one has to realize that what we think of as success may not be perceived as success. So we have to be conscious about all the three aspects of quality. Measurable can be defined objectively as compliance to adherence or adherence to standards. I'm sure people who do a lot of LASIK would face this. They would have had good vision, but it takes a little while to stabilize. So people can be very unhappy, though your measurements say something, but your perceptions are different. Appreciative. Today, I think peer review recognition is very important. I think people go for accreditation and also the regulatory processes, to start a hospital, to maintain a hospital on a yearly basis. There are a lot of many regulatory issues that one has to be conscious about. And then comes the perceptive. Today's Google review is all about perception. It is not about anything else. The measurable and appreciative are taken as granted. Because they kind of expect a minimum level of competency and a minimum level of standards to be adhered to in any organization. So quality, it comes to structure, process, people, and that's what leads to outcome. And this is what I was saying. When I looked at all the three leaders who spoke, I would see their biggest strength is people management. They are able to manage ophthalmologists. Ophthalmologists are not easy to manage. Any technical person, forget, not only ophthalmologists. We all have different beliefs. We all have different ways of looking at things. And ego is real. When people are really good at what they do, it's like a movie actor. There are stars in our teams. How are we going to handle stars? So I think people skills, I'm not taking away anything from the other tangible things, but tangible things don't build an organization. Intangible, the bricks and mortar don't make a building or hospital. That's the point I'm trying to reinforce with this observation. So the way we look at it in Arvind is these are our values, and I would say I would equate to how we maintain quality. Making eye care accessible to all is important for us. So all our actions, is it reflecting this? That is the question, right? You have certain values, you have to, that's a filter through which you try to run your decision making, whether you belong to the core of your emotional infrastructure or you're nurturing your emotional infrastructure. Patient centricity and compassion, quality and continuous improvement, discipline and respect for everybody, both patients and the provider. Are you constantly learning as an organization, developing self-reliance and finding a way, frugality? Dr. Debashish touched the point. So for us, it's not about what you have within, but how you display what you have is also an important aspect for us as an organization. Staff centricity, without our staff, who are we? We are nothing. You can't be a leader without people working for you and making and knowing the organization. Finally, sharing. I think all the three speakers before, and including me, I think what differentiates all of us is here in ophthalmology is all of us are sharing. We don't have a hesitation. We don't try to keep something thinking that this is going to be a savior for us at a later. The other important part is, a lot of times I want you not to equate quality with equipment. That's one aspect of it. That's one message I wanted to give. And quality doesn't cost more all the time. And please remember, high cost doesn't mean that it comes with quality. The point made. A good phaco machine costing say 15 or 18 lakhs can do the job for 95% of our patients, cataracts. Where it comes as a difference is that 5% of the cases. If you choose to play those 95% of the cases alone as your target segment, even 80%, you will do reasonably well with a good phaco machine. And how you get used to it, it is how you drive your car. It is also, the machine also adapts to it in many ways. You adapt to the machine so that in your hands that machine functions very well. So it is not the cost alone. The other point I wanted to talk about is a lot of times we look at the tangible aspects as quality. If waiting time if you take that factor as a quality parameter in any organization, it talks about multiple things. Are your people punctual? Are you as a leader punctual when it comes to the coming to the organization? Do we have empathy as a team? The patient has come, a 75-year-old man has come, or a lady has come, waiting for more than 2 hours or 3 hours. Do we have the empathy to say that why are they waiting? Why are they complaining? Motivation of staff. They come at 8 o'clock or whatever time one starts, and then the real work starts after an hour. They come, have a cup of tea, talk about the previous day events. Is that what is happening? Are you starting the registration? Does the work start immediately? Do you have adequate manpower? There might be a time where, people spoke about growth earlier. Growth doesn't happen naturally. I'm talking about growth in physical numbers, number of patients. Imagine if you're one doctor, if you have capacity to handle, say, 40 patients or 50 patients a day, that's your limitation. If you want to grow 5%, 10% year on year, it's not going to be possible because you are the bottleneck in the system. So then comes whether you want to hire another doctor. You can't say, okay, I will see 50 patients now, 10 years from now, I'll see 100 patients. That's not possible. And one has to realize that the doctor is also getting older. The time it takes to see a patient today has gone up. Sorry, there is some noise in the background, some construction work. I'll apologize. And culture of the organization, value of the organization, appropriate infrastructure, systems, monitoring technology. The point I'm making is even a thing like waiting time talks a lot about the organization's well-being. Is it disturbing a lot?
No, it is not disturbing us at all.
Okay, thank you. Determinants of quality, all of us managing operations. This is an ongoing everyday activity. You don't build your buildings every day. You don't buy equipments every day. But what makes a successful organization is what you do every day. Every surgery that you do, every patient that you talk to, every patient that you take care. So managing operations is a very important element. Skilled human resource, state-of-the-art technology, appropriate systems, financial control and sustainability. It was very well shared, and effective monitoring constantly. So, continuous improvement, we all know, right? A lot of times we talk about paradigm shift. Somebody has changed dramatically. But there are multiple ways to look at it. As I spoke earlier, debottlenecking can happen when you do small changes. Like you say, as Dr. Debashish said, put a door in between two consultation rooms. That is debottlenecking. Because you can bring 20-30% more efficiency to your consultation. Incremental innovation, small changes, like what Dr. Mahipal said, change your facility every 10 years. You're not changing anything in the care, anything in the surgery, but it's an incremental change that helps to make the place look a little better. Structural intervention, like Dr. Debashish said, you build 2 buildings. Build first building first, build your practice, and then go to the second building. So that's a structural intervention one is doing. Fourth can be paradigm shifts, like all the 3 speakers who spoke before. The paradigm shift they did was, why should I only run one center? I can manage multiple centers. I'll have to have a structure. I'll have to build leadership. I'll have to have the management bandwidth. So if you really looked at it, they have created a structure and an ecosystem where it's like building a bridge, right? They have built a bridge where 1,000 cars can go. But when they had one center, they had built a bridge, or they were only allowing 1 car to go, 10 cars could go. They have made the bridge. And today, what is interesting is they will keep, all of us, including our organization, we will keep adding bridges so that we can expand. But the core is the same. Equipment manufacturers are the same. Your systems are same. So you're getting used to it. So it becomes a little more easier as the time goes by and as the centers increase in number. So other important aspect is, when your system is, when you start young, when you start about, say, 10 employees, I'm assuming that's how you start. It's a low complex ecosystem, and their culture becomes very important. Oh, this is how my doctor treats patient. I need to learn from that. This is how he speaks to she speaks to the patient. This is how they handle a complication. So the culture becomes very, very important when you are a very small organization. All organizations start small. No organization is starting with 10 centers, 20 centers, unless these are new age organizations which are very different. But as you get expanding, you get more than 5 centers or 10 centers, you're becoming a highly complex organization. Systems becomes very important. I'm sure this is true for all the 3 of the speakers. They will probably know 10% of all their employees or 20% of all their employees as of today. There was a time when they have known every employee, their family, their members, their problems, their sons, what are they doing? But that changes. So that is what leads to culture, but then system kind of replaces it. So one has to be conscious about it. As a leader, there are myths that is floating about you. One of the doctors can think, oh, Dr. Mahipal knows everything that's happening in the system. That's a myth. But Dr. Mahipal enhances that by having measurable data, talking to them once in a month. So I'm just making it a point. That's true for us as well. We can't control everything that is happening around us, but then we use some of those examples to make sure that others get the message continuously. So, this is my last but one slide. Ford versus Toyota. In America in the 60s, when Toyota was introducing their cars, those were small cars priced at 50% of American cars, doing far better than American cars in terms of quality. We all know the Japanese build of quality. So Ford was very upset. Ford said, what's happening here? Why are people not buying our cars? So Ford said, the problem with Ford was what they had diagnosed. It takes us about 2 days when a car comes with a repair. So the Ford, in an advertisement, big advertisement in television and newspaper had given an advertisement saying that from now on, it will take 3 hours, whatever the problem is. We will even change the engine, but we'll give it in 3 hours. So that is a big change, from 2 to 3 days to 3 hours. So that's a big advertisement they made, and it was celebrated. The next day, Toyota puts an advertisement in the same newspaper and everything. You don't even have to bring the car to us because you won't have the need to bring it. That's quality, right? That's the kind of consistency that Toyota was able to get. Why become smarter in handling a problem? If you can avoid the problem at all, that becomes a far better way to deal with the things. Finally, I would like to end with this quote. This is the point I was trying to make by saying art and science and saying tangible and intangible. Intelligence and capabilities are not enough to build a fine and great organization. One has to understand the joy of doing something beautiful and managing people. That's what makes all these 3 leaders who they are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arvind. You did say a lot in those slides. Now, I have a question which I would want Dr. Mahipal, Dr. Srinivas, Dr. Debashish all to answer. Ramurthy. In India, like for an initial consultation, it ranges anything from 50 to 3,000 rupees. And invariably, it's sort of a similar examination done in most places. So how do any of our leaders sitting here, the youngsters, how should they differentiate in their practice?
Can I take this?
Yes.
No, I was reading a news. I'm sure all of us are familiar in Tamil Nadu. There is an actor called Vijay in Tamil Nadu. He has charged 100 crores for a film. Many are acting, and there are actors who pay money to get into a film. So I think it depends on who you are, how you have positioned yourself, the demand and supply for you. So that is, I don't think it's the number. It's 50, 100,000, doesn't matter. 3,000, 5,000. If Vijay can demand 100 crores and people are willing to give 100 crores, we don't have to have a problem about it. It's a supply demand. So I think that's how I see this as a issue.
Chitra, to answer your question, which was a very nice question, I must say. In Disha, we are rethinking ourselves a little bit, because essentially, when you know that we used to see patients at 100 rupees, which was a registration fee, not really a consultation fee. So having said that, we have come to a position, obviously this was a compassionate capitalism, like our earnings were somewhere else. The seeing a patient was subsidized. So essentially, nobody in a work environment would like to do something subsidized. So we wanted to become more realistic to the cost and price of the OPD service. And this is a change that we are trying to make, because otherwise with 100 doctors, some of them may not have the amount of surgical skill sets, or they may not be doing so much of surgical work. They feel that they are not doing enough because they are not bringing in that much revenue to the organization. So all this is trying to be recast, because this mechanism is causing noise in the organization.
Dr. Chitra, your question on what even Dr. Arvind said, see, it basically demand and supply. After all, an individual is constrained by the capacity of patients that he or she can see. And in case there is enough and more demand, you could actually increase. So there is no issue. Youngster, if he is single, then that's a separate question. But there is no issue within the same organization having different price points. And those are displayed upfront. That means that if you are wanting this doctor or these set of doctors, we'll charge 500 rupees. If you're asking for 4, 5, 6 of our consultants, we charge 2,000 rupees as a consultant. So that's like fortunately, we still don't have breathing time when we have increased our this thing. So it all depends on the demand that is available for each and every consultant. It may be the same thing that a person is prescribing same drops, etc. But then there are people who are willing to pay that extra to get that final opinion from another thing, and that has come over time. It is over time that people kind of the goodwill or the kind of professionalism, the scientific acumen at that particular time that a doctor had, that patients say that this person is the final word in this particular disease. So there you could alter your charges to the extent that that is there. And as Dr. Arvind said, you have to understand as to when you are capacity constrained. You as an individual should never become the bottleneck. When you are leading an organization, you should never become a bottleneck that all the patients have to come through me, pass through me. There are a couple of doctors who do that, and they will never grow. They will never grow as an organization. They will never have a team that is around them, because they are not letting others grow. They are like a banyan tree underneath which another tree will not grow. So you have to be giving, and you have to tell the people that, okay, and by raising my consultation fee or our consultation fees to a particular level and having another one, you are actually pushing the patients to those people, and they will be obligated to you. Because when people join, they don't have their numbers or whatever it is, and say, supposing we say that I will not do CGHS or panel patients or ECHS patients, etc. So that becomes a barrier. The CGHS, ECHS patients cannot, they are impaneled for Center for Sight, and Center for Sight has to provide a doctor. So automatically you are pushing patients towards those who have less number of patients. So I would say tariff rates can vary, and you should have varied tariff rates. And depending upon how busy a doctor is, he could actually keep on increasing his tariffs or the consultation fees or even the surgical charge. We as seniors have also to kind of take a particular position that if we are not able to charge more, then how would anybody else be able to charge more? So that is also a concept that some of us have taken, that keep on setting the benchmarks. Like the companies are increasing by 10%, you should also increase, we should also increase. This is a practice across all corporate hospitals. Come 1st April, their charges will increase by 10%, 7%, 8%, 10%, that is fixed. That the charges have to increase by 10%. That is only when they will be able to keep their ends, they will be able to make their ends meet.
I think it also depends on the location of the practice. Supposing you were to start a center close to All India Institute, the thought of yours would be that you take some of those patients.
It is the best place to start an institution.
Absolutely.
Yeah, then you would bring your prices lower.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think Safdarzung and Maulana Azad and AIMS are the best places where you can start.
No, then you would bring down your prices there. So probably it also depends on.
I will not bring down my prices, Dr. Chitra, because the type of patients who are going to All India Institute are different, and then there will be an X number of patients who will be dissatisfied with All India Institute of Medical Sciences. That is 100% going to be there. So I am very happy that a 1750 bed hospital is coming up across Dwarka, which is just across the road. And I'm very happy because I know, come whatever may, they will not be investing that much in ophthalmology to make ophthalmology such as this thing, but it becomes a medical drainage. I am not afraid. If I have set up my vision centers, at least 50% of them are next to Lenskart. See, there is a spillover. When McDonald's came into India, where did they put up their stores? They put up their stores next to eating joints, like those who are from Delhi, Evergreen Sweet Shop, it is next to that. Bengali Market, it is next to Nathu Sweets. If you go to Priya Complex, it is next to where Nirula's was. So basically, there is already a footfall there. And there are X percentage of patients who are unhappy. Whatever you may do, majority of us are there in India. There are majority of the people are negative people. A lot of people are negative people. Whatever service you may provide, they may be unhappy. There will be X percentage. So there is going to be a spillover. So I will be most happy to put it like I think London, the Harley Street or something that has X number of LASIK centers. So it becomes a garden, or it becomes a kind of a nucleus where there are those places. So don't be afraid of another institution which is there that they will wipe you out. Actually, they get in more patients and people walk over from one place to the second place for window shopping or a second opinion.
Mahipal sir,
Dr. Ramurthy, yes.
Just a practical point, a short point about the consultation fee. What was being said is absolutely right by all the other three speakers, and maybe that's relevant to iconic practices, large established practices. But please remember, the youngsters among those who are listening in, that you need footfalls. Basically, you need people to walk in, then only your cataract surgery, LASIK, anything, your opticals, everything will grow. Sometimes if you price yourself too high, because the patients often judge your entire pricing structure by the initial consultation fee that you charge. So especially depending on the location of the place where you're charging, it might be a good idea, given though my charges as far as cataract, LASIK, vitreoretinal surgeries are not much different from what's being charged in good centers in Delhi or Chennai. But at the same time, when it comes to consultation fee, we are priced much lower, simply because we want the people to come in, because that's what's the prevailing practice in the area where I practice. And then subsequently, once they, because if you look at your balance sheet, irrespective of the size of your organization, you'll find that the contribution of the revenue generated from a consultation is extremely small compared to what you generate through procedures and surgeries. So definitely let that initial not be a barrier, especially if you're starting out a practice.
So Ram, that's exactly what I said earlier, that the barrier of entry should be less. But in case you have enough people who can command a premium, then let them command a premium and let the others work at the
No, I completely agree. I mean, your model works extremely well for you, but the message should not be that, you know, that the initial consultation fee sometimes acts as a deterrent for a person to walk in.
Gaurav?
I wanted to ask, Mahipal sir was mentioning that all the corporate hospitals on April 1, they increased their tariffs by about 8-10% or whatever. How come, since you yourself had mentioned that about managed care taking over 60-70% of our revenue, and we are not able to do anything about price revisions with, and everything is benchmarking itself either to CGHS or ECHS or Ayushman. So 70% of our revenue is actually stuck at, 10-year-old prices or maybe 15-year-old prices, and we can't do anything about it. Why can't we all get together and do something about it? Because, it's kind of self-defeating now as the share is increasing, like from 70 to probably 80% in a year or two.
So, Gaurav, the problem that comes in ophthalmology is that if you have a big multi-specialty hospital, they have a constraint of beds, right? So if you have, say, an Apollo hospital in Delhi, and that is, say, Choco or a BLK or something which is choco-block full, and there are people who are willing to come paying by their cash, or they are willing to come and pay by TPAs who pay more, etc., then they say no to CGHS and ECHS. Do you understand? But we do not have a capacity constraint. That is why we don't want to lose the CGHS and the ECHS. See, the point is, how many of our OTs work 24/7? Any one of us sitting here would have an OT finishing at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You could actually run the OTs till another 5, 7, 8 hours, because you're setting up an OT, as Dr. Devashi said, needs a 300 square feet or a 400 square feet, and you can have multiple OTs that can be set up. So beds are not a constraint for us. That is why I think the unity problem or the issue is there in ophthalmology, because even if you are doing at CGHS rates, you may still be able to save. So that is the biggest problem. Until, of course, we are able to say no to the other low cost things, we will not be able to get that. But so much to say that for whatever you can increase the price rates, you should increase that. CGHS is the same for there, but if you are looking at a TPA, etc., they don't. The OPD is not covered by TPA. The hospital initial pre-op procedures, etc. So usko to badhao, even though it may not form a valuable chunk of the whole thing, but I still believe that should keep on going up. Those are the things which need to, like an OCT at places might be done for 500 rupees. We charge 2,300 rupees or 4,600 for both eyes. So that is where you have to see that and people don't go window shopping for these small little procedures or small little diagnostics. That is where we can incrementally keep on increasing the cost, because these are not covered by the various things. Until, of course, we are able to become stronger ourselves and say no to this thing. See, what is happening? Well, look at the disruption. People are shouting about this today. Pristine healthcare just came in. I don't know how many of you have heard. Pristine healthcare is today valued at 600 million US. Okay, that is much more than the valuation of Devashish, Mahipal, and maybe Ramamurthy put together. Okay, so these guys are just aggregators. They do not have their own centers. They do not have anything, but they are having Bomirai on the television, and they are saying, you come to us and we will get the surgery done. So I have 4, 5, 7 people in Delhi, separate hospitals who are empaneled with them. They will collect the patients and take those patients to them and pay them a fee, like if they are, and their surgeon will go and operate there. And those people are willing to outsource their OTs. So the problem that is going to happen is that we make cry ourselves hoarse, but disruption is coming in, and it is going to come in very strongly. There is no way that you can stop disruption. The M-Fine is there, the Pristine is there. These guys, they imperceptibly, they are not ophthalmologists sitting and discussing things like this with this, and where people are jealous or do this thing. They are just by the side coming in, and they are coming in with these disruptive things. And this is going to happen. This is going to change the face of way the healthcare is going to be this thing. COVID has brought digitalization, COVID has brought virtual things into healthcare in such a big fashion, and people are putting in money. Maximum money is now today coming in into artificial intelligence, these kind of things. You will have kiosks in malls where people will be told that you have diabetic retinopathy, go get a anti-VEGF injection or go to a doctor or this, that, and the other. Things are going to be dramatically different. This thing, home try-ons, virtual try-ons, everything is going the disruptionist way. So one has to really see the things are, a kid may develop an app and he make much more satisfying to himself, much more money for himself than maybe setting up a hospital and trying to, as the Debashish said, this is a stationary kind of a building. Agar ye mazak hai, ITC is a 200 rupiya ka bill. ITC today, despite doing anything, despite making humongous profits, does not move ahead of 200 rupees in the share market or 210 rupees in the share market. But a Zomato comes in and gets so much of listing. So we will be the tortoises. There is absolute, until of course we do the disruption, we will be just tortoises. If we will keep on moving, if we are satisfied by being a tortoise, well and good. But things, according to me, are going to be disruptive over the next 5 to 10 years, and the disruption is going to be massive.
And my
answering one question in the chat, I think doctor has asked about the appointment placements. I think what you should do is you should fix the appointments for a leaner time so that those are sure patients, and keep yourself open for the walk-in patients at a time when the walk-in patients are more. That way you may not be mixing these two set of patients. I hope I've answered you, Dr. Harsha. Okay, yes, Dr. Debashish.
Yeah, no, I was telling that we are also thinking in terms of, what Maipal told, that e-diagnostic centers and, just diagnostic centers, because there are places which are too small to have a hospital, but actually we need to be there and be closer to them. So essentially, we have already started working on that. So I think many of us, even private practices, should see that, the vision center concept that Arvind brought in. We have, a little higher version of that maybe. We have to explore whether we can have an OCT there.
Yes.
So we have to think, because it is how much of the patients is kept under medical, under our fraternity.
Yes.
Because, the other things are going to happen. Why aggregators could not do well, or will probably not do well in ophthalmology, is because of the penetration in ophthalmology. The ophthalmology is a fairly well penetrated discipline. We need to extend it further.
Yes.
Yeah,
but I think we need to,
somebody else will do it.
I think we need to conclude. I'm sure otherwise we'll end up losing all our audience. So on my concluding remarks on behalf of ARC, a very special, very, very special thanks to all our expert panel. I'm not taking your names, but I genuinely mean, for setting aside this very important restful time, a Sunday with your family, for LDP. And I hope as an LDP, all of you do appreciate that. Definitely it has enhanced your thought process. Probably it must have even added your courage to take some more calculated risks in life. My thanks to my co-moderators, Anaga and Srinivas, for adding energy to the moment. Our thanks are due to Sai and Manjula from Numerotech for sharing the Zoom platform. And as I had mentioned earlier, we would be coming back to you with different modules of approach to enhance your LDP program. I would be most conducive to any ideas thrown by any of the young LDP members. You could write in the different groups, or you can write separately to me. And I would ensure that we add that area of focus in these LDP meetings and make it as useful as we could in the pandemic times. Thanks a lot, one and all of you, for being with us. Until we meet again, stay connected. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Debashish, Dr. Mahipal, Kumar, Gaurav. Thanks a lot, Dr. Srinivasan. Thanks, Anagha. Thanks, Ramurthy.
Amazing talks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all LDP participants. I hope we have started off somewhere and we'll take you forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, madam. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.